condoms for Hamas, and they've used them as a method of making bombs.
You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in.
Woo! Thank God it's Friday! Big hot take. 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 Big hot take.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Hyde are all over with you guys. All right, look, we've got your usual set of crazy stories. Trump team calling all of us terrorists and criminals and all that stuff. Sure. But this show is shockingly loaded with good news. Wait, what? Okay, hold up. Now we got a giant protest tomorrow. You guys know about it, but we're going to give you the details and how they're attacking, how we're countering that and all of that. And I love how many people are going to show up. And my guess is a gajillion, right? We'll tell you about that on Monday too. Of course, shows Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. All right. So the second thing is a Democrat turns in a way that is totally unexpected, and a sea change. I've never seen anything like it, and it's great news. But wait till you see what we do at 8 o'clock Eastern tonight. Because you know how we're crowdsourcing the revolution? And we're doing this crazy thing where we're gonna unite the left and the right. Oh yeah, sure buddy, yeah, of course you are, right? And we're gonna try to do things that are for all Americans, like lowering drug prices. Oh yeah, all right buddy, right, okay. And also we're gonna get people, we're gonna push from the outside into inside Congress and get a bill passed. Oh yeah. Well, wait till you see who has backed our effort tonight. Okay, it's a big name, and all of a sudden, the battle is joined. Okay, so.
I don't even know.
You don't know? There's only like a handful of people who know right now.
Is it in the rundown?
It's not in the rundown.
Damn,
it's a secret, state secret.
Is it in the hijack doc? Can I see that iPad for a second?
No. All right, guys, so stay around. We got the whole 2-hour news show, and then we'll do that dramatic announcement. Okay.
Okay, yes, we will get to that good news, but first we're gonna get to all of the different things that prominent members of the Republican Party are calling you, all the dirty words they have for you. So let's jump into the first bit of that. White House spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt shared her thoughts about who she thinks makes up the Democratic Party's base in an interview with Fox News last night. Hear her out.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to. They don't stand for anything except for catering to their far left base, which, as I said, includes anti-Semites, includes Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals who they want to let off freely to roam in American streets.
Something wild, like pardoning insurrectionists or something to that effect. So that's not just her saying the Democratic politicians are those people, Cenk. That's their base. That's her responding to the potentially millions of people that are gonna be out this weekend at the No Kings protests. Seems like she doesn't have much respect for them.
Yeah, so in the old days, what I would have done is ripped into her and right-wing voters and start with fascist Barbie and work our way from there, okay? Because if you're gonna call us names, I'm gonna call you names. We're not ones to back down from a fight, right? But these days, I'm gonna try a different tact. And I'm gonna do that after you give us all the details of the story, okay? And then I'm curious as to what your reaction will be. But I will note in the beginning that, okay, I don't know about Barbie, but she looks like she's an American Girl doll that was wound up by Trump/Israel everyone who disagrees is a Hamas terrorist. Okay, not that American dolls do that, but anyways.
You know more about them than I do, but I would have bought it.
I do have a young daughter.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, also, like, I know that she's delivering red meat to Fox there, but like, so you're declaring that one side of our political, like, dichotomy or whatever is made up of literal terrorists. And you're saying that in an interview, and you're smiling, you're almost bouncing, you're giddy as you're declaring that. That seems a little bit discordant. I didn't really understand that part. But
no, that's it, John. I'm gonna make a prediction later in this video. You're forcing me into a prediction, okay?
Okay.
All right, but keep going.
I don't even know what the prediction is going to be. So she's responding not only to the No Kings protest, which we'll be talking about more later on the show, but also mayoral candidate in New York City, Zohran Mamdani. He did an interview with Fox News yesterday or 2 nights ago, I guess it was, and did a very good job. And obviously the White House doesn't want that. They don't like how popular he is. He's supposed to be a radical and he seems so goddamn smart and charismatic and common sense. And so they're hitting back at him because there's nothing that he is ever going to say about Hamas or about any of this that is gonna satisfy these people because they don't actually care about what he thinks. They care about making it seem like he's a radical. And so this was sort of one of the ways that she was responding to that. And so in response to Leavitt, here you have Hakeem Jeffries, who's going to do his best to hit her back equally hard.
And then you got Caroline Leavitt, who's sick, she's out of control. And I'm not sure whether she's just demented, ignorant, a stone cold liar, or all of the above. But the notion that an official White House spokesperson would say that the Democratic Party consists of terrorists, violent criminals, and undocumented immigrants, this makes no sense. That this is what the American people are getting from the Trump administration in the middle of a shutdown.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't have the much standards, I think, for Hakeem Jeffries. I think that's something he's doing, like a version of being strong. I think I would have pitched my response in a different direction. Like he's pitching as they're being bad, which they are, but I might pitch it more as like this is what the White House, its official line is about at least half of the country. Or if you look at approval polls, more than half of the country. It's people that do not back him, don't like his wild abuses of power, his violations of the Constitution. And simply because they speak out against him, you now are classified by your government as a terrorist, by a sympathizer with international terrorist movements, a violent criminal. Like this is how easily they move you from, you can't be patriotic if you disagree with this president. I feel like he made it too much about Carolyn Leavitt. I don't know, what do you think about his response?
He's trying. The first half, like where he's like sick and this and that, was like not bad. You're kind of getting there if you're going for the gladiator route. That's old school in my opinion. Okay, but like I know that people are just catching up to that old school. Like, oh, we should fight them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wow. Hey, Hakeem, nice to wake up. I thought you were woke already. So anyways, okay, but overall, look, if you wanted to go that route, the old school route, what I'm calling old school route, what Hakeem Jeffries should have done there is say like, what do you call it? You're insulting 100 million Americans that are Democrats? Well, that's kind of sick and it's un-American, right? So Caroline Leavitt obviously has a problem with this country. I don't know, maybe it's because she's serving a foreign government. What is this talk of Hamas terrorists? Are you saying 100 million Americans are Hamas? Is that the ludicrous? I mean, I think she should be checked into a mental asylum if she truly believes that. I mean, obviously she's lying. Obviously, right? You think 100 million Americans are all illegal aliens and criminals and terrorists? So are you a mental patient? Did you recently escape? Or are you lying on purpose to drive division and hatred in this country? And call my voters out one more time, okay? And then we'll see what I call you next. So that would have been old school, okay? Yeah. So, but Hakeem, does he have that in him? No, a consultant has to tell him, oh, you should use the word sick, you should do this, and you should get into racism, and then so he'll, like a quarter of it, right? So, okay, but I'm gonna tell you what I think we should actually say in a minute.
Yeah, it's better than him posing with the little baseball bat. I guess it's something, I suppose.
Yeah.
So she then responded to him with this message. I'm not gonna read the entire thing. Tweets have gotten entirely too long in the modern era. It's the worst thing that Elon Musk has done to Twitter. But she says Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats are lashing out because they know what I said is true. It's not, that's insane. The Democratic Party's elected officials absolutely cater to pro-Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. Blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on, what's the part I care about? They coddle violent criminals. Again, Donald Trump literally released over 1,000 insurrectionists, some of whom almost immediately went out and committed more crimes. Hakeem Jeffries is an America last stone cold loser. She literally is only calling him America last because that is the criticism Donald Trump has been getting even from MAGA people recently. Now open up the government and stop simping to try to get your radical left-wing base to like you. See, like she knows that simping is like a term. She doesn't really know what it means, which is why it is so ill like positioned. Like that's not at all. What are you talking about? He's insulting you. He wasn't, is he simping to you? He wasn't even talking about them. How could he? Again, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't think that she's particularly great at her job. I guess if you are already 100% in the Trump cult, then you're gonna like it or whatever. And Donald Trump certainly does. He likes that face, those lips, they move like a machine gun. But it's also madness. And I don't think that when he's gonna have to try to convince some people to support him once again, his approval rating is so low. It's not the sort of messenger you necessarily need. So we do want to give you a couple of other responses to her. Congressman Greg Casar says Carolyn Leavitt should resign. They try to make us hate each other to distract from the fact that they're robbing us all blind. It's sick, and he's totally true. That is literally the entire Republican Party going back a century and a half. Mehdi Hassan says it is astonishing that just weeks after Republicans took to the media to angrily say any reference to their party as Nazi or fascist was incitement to violence, they're now accusing the Democratic Party of being Hamas terrorists. Per their own logic, they are inciting violence. And I agree, that's the new standard, so I guess we should follow that. But look, those are some people that you might expect to disagree with her. Let's move to one that you might not. So this is a former lawyer in the Trump White House, Jim Schultz, what he had to say.
The rhetoric needs to be toned down, period, right? Both sides, it's a problem on both sides. The rhetoric needs to be toned down. They can't get out of their skis and say things like she did. I would have said it differently than she did. I think you would have said it differently than she did. We would have all said it differently than she did in making an argument whether we're arguing against one party or the other.
And yeah, so I think that he's right. I think that politically, strategically, it's bad for the Republicans. It's also, it's not just like wildly hypocritical in relation to, as Mehdi Hassan points out, what the Republicans were saying about political rhetoric just a couple of weeks ago. But also, like it reminded us here at TYT of a thing that caused a lot of a brouhaha on the right. Hillary Clinton and her infamous deplorables comment. How dare you insult so many Americans with that one label you used one time? And here is what Donald Trump had to say about that.
I am running to be a president for all Americans, you know what I mean. I was thus deeply shocked and alarmed to hear my opponent attack, slander, smear, demean these wonderful, amazing people who are supporting our campaign by the millions. Nobody's heard anything like this. She called these patriotic men and women every vile name in the book. The disdain that Hillary Clinton expressed toward millions of decent Americans disqualifies her from public service. You cannot run for president if you have such contempt in your heart for the American voter, and she does. You can't lead this nation if you have such a low opinion for its citizens.
So we'll get to the substance of that in just a sec, but that was 9 years ago, and he is very visibly and just verbally different than he was even just those 9 years ago. So she called them every name in the book. Well, not every name, not every vile name. She didn't call them terrorists. She didn't call them violent criminals. She didn't call them illegal aliens. I guess Carolyn Leavitt was able to come up with a few that Hillary Clinton didn't think of. But that was, she said, the basket of deplorables. And that was the end. The right was so aghast. How dare you say that? And meanwhile, Carolyn Leavitt is tripping over herself to declare that they're literal terrorists. And we hear this just constantly now. I'm actually kind of surprised Carolyn Leavitt is getting as much pushback as she is because of how casually now, in not only comments like this, or as we'll get to later on, Mike Johnson, just declaring, like, if you're one of these regular people that goes out and protests this weekend, you are a literal goddamn terrorist. And it's not just that, like, it's not just comments. The, what is it, the NPSM7? Effectively declare, the government is saying, if you do not agree with us on how capitalism should work, you might be a violent criminal, you might be a violent terrorist. If you don't have the same views on the family or the traditional role of gender or whatever, you might be a violent terrorist. It is not just commentary on Fox. It is the official documented position of the federal government on at least half, I would say the majority of the American people. And so we have fallen a lot from when they were clutching their pearls over Hillary Clinton.
All right, I'm gonna start out light and then I'll get to the crazy prediction at the end here. Les is one of our members on TYT.com. We like to do the show with our members and well, you guys, and they start out with a fun little comment. I've been calling her Caroline, don't believe it. That's fun. Somebody else wrote in with Caroline, take it. But Caroline, don't believe it's a little bit better. Okay, so all right, now onto the substance. So of course I agree with Mehdi Hassan. The Republicans caught a lot of vapors over the incitement to violence from rhetoric. We're worried about the rhetoric. You got to tone down the rhetoric. I can't believe you criticized Donald Trump. Oh, until you criticized his hair, you criticized his looks and his orange tan. Oh, it's violent, it's violent. Oh, we're so worried about incitement. I can't believe you called right-wingers deplorables. Oh, I'm so hurt, right? Terrorists, criminals, aliens, right? Okay, guys, which one is it? Are you worried about the rhetoric or you're not worried about the rhetoric? Okay, I have a sense of that. That goes into the prediction in a sec. But so, I mean, that irony and hypocrisy is obvious. Like if you're on the right and you don't want to see it, all right, that's your business. But the rest of us obviously see it. Like the hypocrisy is like through the roof. Okay, on what names people are called. Come on, you're gonna out name call Republicans? Only person who could do that is me in the past. Okay, anyways, so now number 3. Look, these days my response is super similar actually to Greg Casar's response that John read you a little while ago. So he's the head of the Progressive Caucus, by the way. He's saying, okay, she should resign, that's fine. And then he said, they're trying to make us hate each other and to distract from the fact that they're robbing us all blind. Ding, 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 we have a winner. That is exactly right. So now, guys, the reality is, in the old days, it's left versus right. Caroline Leavitt says, everybody on the left is terrorists. And then we have to, and normally like the Democrats in the past would have been like, we're so offended, right? And I would say, yeah, you're a terrorist, okay? And then we go back and forth. Okay, but what I want you to realize now is, brother, it ain't left versus right. It's them versus all of us. But once they start calling anyone who's an American citizen a terrorist, we're all doomed. They're just gonna keep expanding and expanding and expanding. And by the way, I mean, look at that long tweet, the parts that we didn't read you. I'm gonna read to you some of it right now. Caroline, what was it? Don't leave it. Okay, don't believe it. Said, so Democratic Party's elected officials, this is the second paragraph there, absolutely cater to pro-Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. So you know that one. And then she wrote right underneath it, in that last part of the sentence, Democrats cheered on pro-Hamas radicals while they hijacked America's college campuses and harassed Jewish students. Wait, what does this have to do with No Kings protest? What does this have to do with the government lockdown? What does this have to do with anything we're talking about right now? And the campus protests were like now years ago. Why are we bringing that back? Oh, they're gonna call all of Israel's critics terrorists. Because not only is this done on behalf of Israel, but it's also the Israelification of our government. Where, what do I mean by Israelification? What Israel does is, anyone who criticizes them, they say, anti-Semite, terrorist, okay? They start with anti-Semite, so you're canceled, you're fired, your life is ruined. We got you, okay? By the way, we're the good guys. We're the victims, okay? Then what they do is they call you a terrorist, and that's before they're about to take away your freedom or your life, right? So now they've trained our government, both on behalf of Israel and on behalf of whoever's in charge, start calling your own citizens terrorists. Say that they're supporting Hamas. 100 million Democrats are going to protest because they love Hamas? Come on, guys, you don't really believe that. Like maybe there's like 13 right-wingers out there. They're like, oh yeah, I know it. They're all Hamas, plus Hezbollah, plus something else. Like plus Shining Path. Oh, we forgot that one. That's a long time ago. Plus Marxist. Okay, all right. Look, you can have an economic conversation. Hey, Zohran Mamdani is too socialist or not. That's a perfectly fine, legitimate political debate. Okay, but saying that all Democratic voters work for Hamas is what a lunatic would say, an absolute lunatic, or someone trying to set the groundwork for taking away all our rights. Now oh, wait a minute, half of the right-wing base is now criticizing Israel. Guess what? Welcome to the club. You're now also terrorists. Anyone who criticizes anyone in authority, which is mainly Israel in this country, is a terrorist. So this is how they start to take away all our rights. So that leads me to my prediction, okay? I made a crazy prediction before Trump took office in December of 2024 on David Pakman's show, bless his heart, that the right wing would start to turn on Israel. And I said, I'm going on a limb, and everybody's, oh, Jake, you're crazy. It's right wing, it's like 98% pro-Israel, rah, and it's in the Bible and all this stuff. Now, all the young and the right, bye-bye Israel, gone, okay? So half of the Republicans and the great majority of Republicans under 35 and the majority of Republicans under 50, gone. Now anti-Israel, and not just because of what they've done with the genocide, but also because it's now become obvious that they're controlling so many of our politicians. Whether it's Trump or Biden, whether it's Andrew Cuomo or Cory Booker, it doesn't matter. Everybody always serves Israel, right? And if you don't, terrorists, right? Cancel culture, take away your freedom of speech, right? So as it turns out, I think, you guys can be the judge of it, I think I was right. And I think a lot I have turned on. So this one's even crazier. So I think that a lot of Trump voters are going to get tired of the Trump team and the Republican Party constantly calling Democratic voters terrorists, criminals, the enemy, domestic enemy, etc. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I know there's a quarter of the base out there who loves it, who's like eats it for dinner, right? Like, hey, breakfast, lunch, you're all terrorists. They get into it, and then one day they're gonna get called terrorists. They're gonna be like, wait, whoa, I didn't mean me. I meant other Americans. Oh wait, why did I call other Americans terrorists? And why did I do it on behalf of a different country? Wait a minute, aren't I America first? Exactly. So the reason I made the earlier prediction is because the problem is that for the bad guys, is that they set up these like talking points, but the core of the talking points were great. They just didn't mean that, right? So they would say like, freedom of speech, we're for freedom of speech. And I'm sitting here going, I love it. I hate cancel culture. I love freedom of speech. Can't wait to see if you are also in favor of freedom of speech when you're in charge. And so now the quarter that's, that are the hard right, radicals, etc., are like, oh no, we never meant freedom of speech. No, that was just to take your power away. Now we're going to abuse our power and take your freedom of speech away. Yeah, I love it. You kidding me? Of course I'm a hypocrite. But my guess is there's a solid giant chunk of Trump voters who are like, no, I kind of meant freedom of speech. And freedom of speech isn't just for me, it's for everyone. That's kind of how it works. I didn't want the Democrats taking it away in my perception of how the Democrats are acting. I don't want the other guys taking it away either. And then America first. They said America first 1,000 times. And you know what? If you're in the Israel camp, that was a huge mistake, or not that they were in favor of that phrase ever, right? But now the MAGA guys believe America first. If they believe anything, it's America first, right? And what part of that is Israel first and America maybe later? What part of that is now we're gonna start calling each other terrorists unless you bow your head to Israel? Okay, I don't think that's gonna work. So America first is working against them because they set up a decent talking point. Look, I'd call it Americans first, but can we ever serve the American voter instead of some donor, corporate donor, foreign government, etc., right? And then the last one is what you saw in some of those clips from Trump earlier, etc. Look, we're all Americans. They said it 100 times, right? What are you picking on us for? We're all Americans. So now they're saying, no, wait, time out. We're not all Americans. Democrats are devils and criminals and terrorists and Hamas for whatever frickin' reason. Why are you guys talking about Hamas nonstop in the middle of this, right? Oh no, you have bow your head to Israel, right? I don't think it's gonna work. I think that a bunch of Trump voters are gonna go, nah, I didn't like it when they did it to us, and I don't like it when you're doing it to them. I got 100 problems with that Cenk guy, this stupid whatever, and his nephew, and this and that, and 1,000 other things, right? But no, they're one of us, and you don't get to call any of us terrorists. So let's see if I'm right or if I'm crazy.
We'll see. I think that one's a little bit harder to define than the Pacman one, but we'll see. The only thing I would add is in terms of how fake Donald Trump was in those clips of I'm going to be a president for everyone. It isn't just that the second you disagree with him, even if you've been a Republican for decades, he's going to start calling you a traitor or a terrorist or whatever. It isn't just that he does not consider himself to be a president for the Democrats, like AOC was pointing out at that town hall. He's not just saying you're bad. They're pulling massive amounts of funding to states that didn't support him. This is not just about comments. This isn't about, oh, he's mean, he insulted us. He is producing actual policy, budgetary harm for massive sections of America that he feels aren't sufficiently loyal. And maybe to your point, while those areas are blue, blue doesn't mean 100% Democratic. It means 60%, it means 54%, it means 51%. There are millions upon millions, if not tens of millions of Republicans who are being screwed over by Donald Trump and by the Republicans because they just happen to live in areas that Democrats were elected in. And you're seeing it every day in the shutdown, the glee that Donald Trump and Russ fought. They're just giggling their way to screwing over so many millions of their most devoted followers for, I guess, committing the sin of living in the wrong area.
Yeah, last thing is, look guys, on free speech is a good example. So where do I get these from? I just imagine it? No, I'm seeing it from the zeitgeist and as it's developing, right? So on the free speech issue, when they tried to cancel Jimmy Kimmel, tons of the right-wing base loved it and they're like, okay, what aboutism, and you guys did it, so now we're doing it, etc. But there was a significant chunk that were like, wait, I think we were against cancel culture, right? So Clay Travis came out first from what I saw and was like, no, I don't like it, okay? Then Greg Gutfeld came out and was like, I don't like it. I'm a comic, he's a comic. Now we're canceling comics, I don't like it, right? Then Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and the list started to grow, right? Because apparently they somewhat meant freedom of speech. And they somewhat meant that they didn't like cancel culture, right? So I think that they somewhat mean we're all Americans. And if you don't agree with that, you can, go ahead and F off, right? So no, we're allowed to disagree with one another. We're allowed to clash like crazy in politics and ideology and philosophy. But no, you don't get to call all 100 million Republicans or 100 million Democrats criminals or terrorists or not really Americans, etc.
Yeah.
And if you do that, I'm starting to wonder if you're really an American. And so, I think that they're gonna do this enough that it's gonna drive Trump's polling down, and it's gonna get down enough that he's gonna go, okay, I got a decision to make. Do I just keep digging and bury myself, and just stick with my 25% base and be done, and then just be wildly unpopular forever and ever and try to do X, Y, and Z to try to control power, even though I don't have the popularity I used to have? Or is he gonna, and Trump does this sometimes, or does he go, oh, that didn't work, I was A/B testing, I guess they don't like authoritarianism, I guess they don't like me dividing the country and spreading hatred, maybe I'll begin to turn around a little bit. But that one's hard to tell, so we'll see. But I do think his poll numbers are gonna go down because of this and some of the other extreme actions that most Americans, including enough of his voters, do not like.
Well, we're gonna follow along kind of on the same line where we directly address the protests after this break.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to our members. So Stoner Dragon disagrees, says, Cenk, love you, brother. I have not seen one MAGA change, not one, not one. They aren't going anywhere. He's throwing them into a frenzy. This weekend may get nasty. Yeah, look, I don't know what's gonna happen this weekend. We'll talk about it in a minute. And so, brother, I see you, right? Like, it's not like I don't see it. Right now, most of the base is like, yeah, let's go get them, pitchforks, they're all terrorists. But I'm beginning to see something that others aren't seeing. And sometimes I'm right about these things, and sometimes I'm not. So we'll all find out together, right? But I'm beginning to see just a sliver of, I'm uncomfortable with this. So let's see what happens with that sliver and how it does. All right, Art Guy writes in, it's amusing that the right thinks the left are useless, lazy hippies who are simultaneously the most organized militant group in the world. That's a great point, Art Guy, really. Like, oh yeah, a bunch of loser hippies, never wants to work, sitting around doing nothing. Plus organizing the greatest military takeover in the US history. What? Antifa, come on, really. I know, I mean, to Stoner Dragon's point, there are still a lot of people who are like, Antifa. What Antifa? I've literally never met an Antifa person, not one. I'm not saying that not one exists, but like this idea that they're secretly moving their chess pieces around. I don't know a single Democrat who's ever listened to an Antifa guy or even knows an Antifa guy. Maybe I don't get out enough.
Antifa!
Okay, I lives in America, writes, and yeah, I can tell by the 2,800 messages from the young Republicans, they weren't too fond of Israel, but for different reasons. Exactly, we care about Israel doing the wrong thing, genocide, etc., but we're not against Jewish people at all. The young Republicans, they don't look that way. Okay, by the way, that is a story about that in the second hour where Daily Wire is ripping itself apart again. Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh disagreeing on whether to support those guys. Gee, I wonder why they're disagreeing. Anyway, Church of Illinois says, hi everyone, we made it to the end of another week. If you're protesting tomorrow, be safe, lock those phones, and check ACLU or elsewhere to learn your rights if needed. And yes, and everybody be peaceful and bring out American flags. Okay, drive them crazy by bringing out American flags. That's my 2 cents. We'll talk more about it. Primaries are important. Says this is some of the scariest language I can imagine being spoken by our government. Yep, When Spirit Feather says John's hair looks great tonight, and Cenk is always so handsome.
He has beautiful hair.
What can I do? And it's true. Art Guy says I think not having a power panel makes this panel even more powerful. Wow. And I'll read the rest later. Back on TYT, Cenk and John, news.
We are actually, let's go into more of the Trump administration, the Trump regime and their allies bad-mouthing the millions of Americans who aren't buying what they're selling, starting with this.
Now tomorrow, the Democrat leaders are going to join for a big party out on the National Mall. They're going to descend on our Capitol for their much anticipated so-called No Kings rally. We refer to it by its more accurate description, the Hate America rally, okay? And I'm not sure how anybody can refute that.
Well, we're gonna give a go at that if you don't mind, Speaker Johnson. But that was him trying to preempt the fact that there's the No Kings 2 rally. It's happening this October, like 2,600 different events across America. The follow-up to perhaps the largest coordinated protest in American history that drove Donald Trump and the Republicans insane. They're still insane from the earlier one. The fact that this looks like it's gonna be even bigger is causing them no end of headaches. And so they're trying to set the narrative. I think that the No Kings organizers have been pretty clear about what they're against. It's in the name. They don't believe that Donald Trump should be allowed to rule as a king. And I understand why Mike Johnson would be a little bit twitchy about this whole thing, since it is his constitutional duty to provide a check to Donald Trump. And he is constitutionally, I would say physiologically, incapable of doing that. And so these protesters are showing him how to do his goddamn job, but he knows he's not gonna do it, so he has a problem with them. That said, we're gonna discuss, we're gonna talk about these protests, but first, here's more from the speaker.
If you think about what's going to happen here tomorrow, you're going to bring together the Marxists, the socialists, the Antifa advocates, the anarchists, and the pro-Hamas wing of the far-left Democrat Party. That is the modern Democratic Party. That's where they've gone. And the Hate America rally is the common theme among all those groups. Listen to the language they use themselves. Many of them don't like living in America. They hate capitalism. They hate our free enterprise system. They hate our principles. They hate the ideas that we come in to work every day to fight for, to preserve, in the greatest nation in the history of the world. They hate the idea of individual freedom and limited government. They hate the idea of the rule of law.
That was the funniest part. I'm glad he ended. I'm glad that was pretty good, Mike Johnson, with Donald Trump in office and the pardons and all that. And they're the Hate America rally, not the ones who tried to murder Mike Pence and bash the skulls of cops in and all of that. Yeah, they're the hateful ones. I was at one of the first No Kings protests. It was just great Americans. It was American patriots who don't like what they're seeing. This is almost certainly going to be exactly the same. But what you had from Mike Johnson there, Cenk, was very similar to with Carolyn Leavitt. It's just, it's Marxist, it's socialist, it's pro-Hamas. Again, I don't know why everything, I guess they got bored with attacking trans people and now everything has to be Hamas at all times. And so it's just the constant bad mouthing. How dare you use your right to free speech, right to free assembly? How dare you stand up? Just lay there and let us do whatever we want to this country. That's the message I'm getting out of them.
Yeah, look, as I keep saying, I think there is some portion of the base, of their base, who views America as them and no one else. Right? So, hey, you disagree with Trump, then you're not an American. You're Muslim, you're not an American. You're trans, you're not an American, etc. But, I know some will disagree, but I think that's a minority even within Trump voters. I think that that the great majority of the country, including a ton of Trump voters, understands that what America really is not an ethnicity or race, religion, or any of that stuff. It's an idea. Well, what idea is it? Well, good news, we wrote it down. It's called the Constitution. Right? So that's our code. That's our DNA. That's the coding of what it means to be an American. So freedom of speech, freedom of the press, by the way, freedom of religion. And government must get a warrant before they come into our property and take our stuff. And a lot of right wing would say Second Amendment, it's 10th Amendment, which gives states rights, etc. Now we could disagree around the edges of what that means. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has perverted the freedom of speech to mean endless money in politics. And there's all legitimate good debates, constitutional debates, legal debates, etc. And we have tons of political debates. And is that a pro-American position? It doesn't get any more pro-America than being in favor of political debates, right? So in other countries, by the way, I lived in another country. For those of you who haven't, look, Turkey was a young democracy. Now it's struggling with democracy. It's had its ups and downs. But people were always nervous that it was going to get taken away. Right? Here, a lot of people were not nervous for a long, long time. Why? Because it's in our coding. You don't take our democracy away. You don't take our speech away. You don't take our rights away. So if you're in the camp of saying, yeah, but if you're on the other side, whatever the other side is, Democrat or Republican, then you shouldn't have the same rights. And I should get to call you a terrorist and take away your rights. Well, that's an un-American position. I mean, literally, empirically. Read the documents, read the Constitution. That is against what America stands for and what we all signed up for. So this whole thing of, oh, you hate America if you protest the government? Brother, how long have you been here? Did you just get here from Saudi Arabia or something? No, in this country, we get to protest our government. The right wing got to protest the government during COVID and during everything else, right? And the left wing gets to protest under Trump. If you don't like that and you don't think that should be allowed, you're really not an American. Like, I don't mean that like, again, not based on identity or anything else like that. I mean, just as philosophically, you don't really believe in this country. Yeah. I'm still gonna give you all your rights and if somebody else is in charge, Mike Johnson can protest to his heart's delight. I would never take his rights away, unlike him, who now says, oh no, the other side are all terrorists, criminals, etc. No, but you want to know what the folks who are going, the good folks who are going to protest actually don't like? Because he said, oh, they hate America, they hate corruption. Guess what? Is that similar to the right-wing voters? Yeah, The right-wing voters also hate corruption. They want lower drug prices. They want higher wages. They want lower housing prices. Just like a lot of the right-wing voters. The rest of it is an attempt to divide us. So look, I know most right-wingers will not do this and will not believe this. But when you see those massive crowds, which will likely be millions of Americans, your fellow Americans, protesting out there on Saturday, you should be slightly proud. Boy, that's our country, that's what we do. You don't agree with our side, so what? Go get them, go protest, right? Now, if you're going to protest, they're already doing a terrific job with this. They've had tons of people teaching crowds nonviolence. We do that before some of our rallies, right? We literally hire people to teach people, like even if you're provoked, don't respond. We teach nonviolence, we teach peace. So please do that, everybody. And by the way, if somebody doesn't do that in a No Kings protest, turn them in. Because they're probably a provocateur. They're very, like, whether they think they are on your side or they're literally not on your side and they're trying to provoke things to get violence, to get it to shut down, etc. Even if they think they're on your side, though, they're not. They're not, because it will lead to terrible consequences. If anyone's planning violence, turn them in, okay? So that's not what we do. And the last thing I'd ask people, and I love that you guys are going out there. Look, I'm not any part of it. Nobody asked me to be part of it, but I'm encouraging you guys to go. And I'm encouraging you to take an American flag with you. Neither party owns America, okay? So why do I love this country? Because of the Constitution. The Constitution guarantees me, or was supposed to guarantee me, largely guarantees me those rights that I love and cherish. And my family came here for those rights because we love that idea, right? So now, is America perfect? Of course not. That's why we do protests like this, right? And that's why we try to make it better and better and better as we go along. So go out there, fight for America, but fight peacefully and bring an American flag so that people know, no, we're America. And not to say you're not, but we're also America. We also love this country, and we love this country because of what's in the Constitution, which I think is the very core of, and I know right wing won't believe this and are surprised, but it's actually the very, very core of traditional liberal, progressive, left wing thinking. We're for everyone's freedom to speak out, everyone's right to protest, everyone's right to religion, etc., etc.
Agreed. I'll be there. I think we should probably take our second break.
Yeah,
we'll have more news after this.
All right. All right, let's go to Super Chat. This is fun. Free My Grandma wrote in with just a bunch of little emojis. It's very hard to tell, but I think they're watermelon juices. Okay, but I like it, thank you. Make it make sense. Cenk, I just heard that Hamas is dragging people out to the streets and doing you know what. Can Palestinians not get a break? So brother, here's the thing, the pro-Israel bots and trolls are putting that out all over the place. And is there some truth to it? I think there is, but there's so much hasbara and propaganda from the Israelis. It's hard to trust anything coming out of their bots, trolls, all the way up to their prime minister. But I want you to understand the context of it. They're making it seem like Hamas is back out there. They're so evil, and Hamas is bad guys, but I want you to know the full story, that they're just taking random innocent Palestinians and murdering them for no reason because they're like, foaming at the mouth with blood and all this stuff, right? No, the guys they're killing are the guys who were local clans that worked with Israel and help to like suppress, oppress, and like significantly harm the Palestinian population while the Israelis were occupying all of Gaza. So that's why they're like, oh, you thought you'd collaborate with the Israelis and against your own people, and you thought you'd make money out of that, and etc. So it's an extremist group, Hamas is. The other clan, fully supported and funded by Israel, is also extremist. And so it's two extremists doing violence to one another to try to gain advantage and control of the group. So just so you know the full context. Okay, In Liberty and Guns We Trust says, and by the way, extremist groups always execute people they view to be traitors. Half the time they're wrong and they're not actually traitors, right? So there's no excuse for it. You should never execute people publicly, obviously, or anywhere, right? But that's what extremism leads to, and occupation leads to extremism. And that's the most obvious thing in the world, unless you're a national media reporter. Okay, In Liberty and Guns We Trust says, as a right-leaning Christian libertarian, I 100% agree that the younger right is turning on Israel. My super religious evangelical friends are sick of them too. Israel can't hide from social media. Yeah, they have hyperdrived the bots and the trolls, but it's not working, and I love it. Stormborn Snuggler says, Congress cries terrorists anyone resisting tyranny while cashing checks from apartheid sponsors. US government are so stitched with donor dollars and guilt. Even Holocaust survivors call this genocide, but America's still drunk on selective memory. Agreed. Jason Travis says, I'm a Trump voter from New York, and I'll tell you, if they raise healthcare premiums, they will lose my vote for good. I voted for populism, not this garbage. AOC for prez. Ho. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, and I was gonna say Anna, sorry, John and
Anna.
And Jen Stenson, because I just read Jen. Anyways, Jen, thank you for gifting a Young Turks membership. Appreciate it. I'm gonna read one super chat before we get back to the news. Joseph Recupero wrote in, I hate corruption, imperialism, predatory capitalism, systemic racism, and the military-industrial complex. Somehow people have confused that with hating America. And they've of course confused that on purpose. No. By the way, again, ask the right wing, now half of them hate the military-industrial complex. So that unity is beginning. Tonight at 8 o'clock, we're gonna have a spectacular example of it. So I think that is a runaway freight train in a good direction. So we'll see. John.
I kept forgetting in the brief breaks we had to ask you who that is, but I'm gonna find out, Anyway, let's get into some breaking news. Donald Trump decided to end the week with a big bit of breaking news, a pardon, but don't worry, it's not Ghislaine Maxwell yet. That's gonna be next week. No, for now, it's that guy. George Santos is getting the commutation of a sentence that he has wanted so badly. And I have a theory as to why Donald Trump did this, something he never seemed interested in doing before. But first, here's how Donald Trump announced it. Obviously, it's a big deal, it's the president, so he just did it on social media as he always does. He says, George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Da Nang stated for almost 20 years that he was a proud Vietnam veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. As always, I think Donald Trump was just watching Rambo. I think he sees something on TV and he thinks it's real life. He was a great hero, he would leak to any and all who would listen. And then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam. He never saw Vietnam, just like Trump. He never experienced the battles there or anywhere else. His war hero status and even minimal service in our military was totally and completely made up. This is far worse than what George Santos did. And at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. A point that we will return to. George has been in solitary confinement for long stretches of time and by all accounts has been horribly mistreated. Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George, have a great life. Good luck with the scams going forward. Because of course, while we can debate whether the lies that George Santos told, which were many and varied and horrific about every aspect of his life and his family history, including about the Holocaust, he lied about everything. Does Donald Trump know? Is Grandpa so deluded? Does he think that's the problem we have with George Santos, is that he lied? Yeah, no, he lied a lot. He also was a fraud and a con man who stole tons of money from people in any number of different criminal schemes. It wasn't just lies. He defrauded people, including many Republicans, in a ton of different ways. He wasn't just a lovable scamp. He was a willful and repeated felon. And Donald Trump either doesn't know that, in which case, basically, I guess this commutation was brought to you by AutoPen, since he doesn't even know what he's signing these days, or he just wants to lie and pretend that he doesn't understand that he's an actual criminal. And by the way, who the hell was bringing up Blumenthal in any of this? They came up with that. They think that that was a cool little cover story to apologize for what George Santos did. But the money thing here is, sure, maybe he lied a bunch, and maybe he's a fraud, but he voted for me. And so I guess he gets a little bit of what Donald Trump has, which is he's above the law because he has the right politics and he supports the right people.
Yeah, so, okay, first of all, why are we talking about Richard Blumenthal? When we're releasing George Santos, what does one have to do with the other? Just such a random line of attack. I had to commute George Santos's prison sentence for massive fraud against usually Republican voters, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I don't like rando Democratic senator from Connecticut. All right, brother. I mean, like to me, that reads weak sauce, right?
Yeah.
So second of all, you had to bring up Richard Blumenthal because he lied about his service in Vietnam. But he was actually in the military, right? So whereas Donald Trump didn't go to Vietnam and lied about it, and we all know it, Commander Bone Spurs, right? They asked him, which foot did you have the bone spurs in? And he couldn't remember / didn't know because he never had bone spurs. They tracked down the letter. The guy who wrote the letter was a doctor who got a nice handout from Trump's dad, et cetera. So like you have the nerve, and he does this all the time. So like something terrible that he's done, he'll criticize somebody else for it. Next thing you know, he'll be like, I can't believe Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal set up a fake university. No, brother, you set up a fake university, okay? And okay, so what's the real reason that he's releasing Santos? First of all, he loves people who commit fraud. He just has a natural like affinity. If he has empathy at all for anyone, it's people who committed fraud.
A lot of his pardons have been for fraud.
No, and yeah, this is not just random attack, guys. Look it up. Like the great majority of his pardons outside of January 6th are all for white collar criminal fraud. Okay. Oh, you rip people off. Get a book, let him go. Come on, let him go, right? And what has Trump done for most of his life? And so, and a lot of those guys either gave to his meme coin, which is a flat out bribe, right? But there's no rules left, right? And some of them gave him campaign contributions, which by the way is very normal. Bill Clinton did that for Mark Rich, et cetera. So that sucks, but is more closer to what a lot of politicians do. Okay, and lastly on that stuff, he's talking about lies. Oh, by the way, sorry, one more thing about the fraud. He released all these guys that had paid him off. But to me, the reason why I say I think he does it out of empathy is I don't know that Carlos Watson gave him any money or any way, but who knows these days? But he's the guy who used to run Aussie Media, which was another progressive news outlet, media outlet, right? And they did fraud against Goldman Sachs. Oops, you do not mess with Goldman Sachs. Go straight to prison. That's the only thing you ever get put away for in white collar crime world, right? But even so, Trump pardoned or commuted his sentence, I forget which one, of Carlos Watson, a black Democrat who ran a progressive media site, but he did white collar fraud. Yeah, boy, go. It's weird. It's weird and it's not weird because that's his career, right? That's his. He feels like, but for the grace of God, go I. Okay, so that's part of the reason that I think he let Santos go. But I think the second reason is I'm really worried about it, and I think might be more true, and that's the one that John came up with,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of have two. I'll throw out the one that we'll see. I think partially you normalize ever crazier pardons to make the Ghislaine Maxwell one a little bit more palatable, I think. But I think the bigger one is the dude has got Marjorie Greene like snapping at his heels for weeks now. He doesn't like that. She's getting all this press. Because the media, like, first of all, it's interesting to see a MAGA person criticizing Donald Trump, and they want to lift that sort of person up. So she's getting more press than she's ever gotten in her life. And what has she been asking for months and months? George Santos to be pardoned. She loves George Santos. It's actually one of, look, he's a terrible guy, but her like devotion to her buddy in Congress or whatever is one of the most human things about her or whatever. So she's been pushing for that. And it's free. Donald Trump can just do it. What does he care? He literally does not care about George Santos, aside from respecting the hustle of another fraudster. So he gives that to Marjorie Greene. Maybe Marjorie Greene backs off a little bit. Maybe they had a little talk, maybe a little phone call.
No, but combine those two things like you told me during the break. Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, what, you considering Ghislaine Maxwell pardon? You crazy? When you haven't even pardoned George Santos. But he just did pardon George, or commuted George Santos' sentence. Is that a preview of, well, since I did Santos, oh golly gee, I guess I should do Ghislaine Maxwell as well. And you know why I'm doing that? Because of Dick Durbin and his record on Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right? So, So that, John, that'll be an excellent prediction.
Yeah.
If it turns out he does Ghislaine Maxwell, but I don't think he realizes the fury that will come if he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
Like maybe he has to do it because of compromat or whatever that Israel's got on him. I don't know. Okay. Oh no, you can't say that. Yeah, I just did. So hashtag suck it. So yeah, you were gonna say something.
The only other thing, I assume you are right and people will freak out, but I would say we're now like 2 months into, he had a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. He sent his personal lawyer, which is super weird, personal lawyer. And then as soon as it was done, they send her to a minimum security resort prison. It has been like 2 months. Where's the fury? Where's the uproar? Why are people, they haven't had to explain it. There's like, they just did that. And there's been no pushback.
No, there's been a little pushback, but I get it. Like she's, like it was low level enough. It was not outrageous enough in people's opinions. And a lot of them don't even know the details. I mean, we just covered the story earlier this week about how she's running that prison now like Pablo Escobar. She's like, she gets to roam around at night, no one else does. They stuff people in the prison. She gets to do all these meetings. She like runs the place.
Kind of like Epstein got in his sweetheart deal.
Exactly. Yeah. But John, I'm telling you, man, tons of the right wing are catching on. For the left wing independents, we all get it already. And that's a giant chunk of the country. And now when the portion of the right wing that's caught on also joins on. So look, we'll see. I hope we don't see, but my guess, I'm not even guessing it. I'm just saying, if Trump does a pardon or commutes a sentence of Ghislaine Maxwell, no, there will be a fury.
Yeah.
And the right wing will definitely join that fury. Because then it's gonna become obvious. Look, guys, I think the number one problem at this point with Israel is obviously that they're committing a genocide, and they haven't stopped it all. They're still killing people. They bombed Lebanon today because they get to bomb every country anytime they want, right? Or they kill someone inside Lebanon. They constantly attacking their neighbors. They never stop. They're trying to get greater, et cetera, right? So that's obvious. Since there's a genocide, that's the number one problem. But the number two problem, the problem that bothers the right wing even more, is their control of this government. Okay, and that is now becoming more and more apparent every day.
Yeah.
And you let Ghislaine Maxwell go, and this thing's gonna blow.
Yeah, and my final point, I think it's totally natural that we immediately jump to what's gonna happen next with this. But I think we should also stop for just a second to acknowledge that this is insane. George Santos is a almost completely unrepentant fraudster and massive liar. He defrauded the American people, he defrauded tons of individual people. And the president is just going to release this guy. He just now gets to go scam other people, maybe run for office again. And along the way, he insults a Democrat and then basically says, hey media, you know why I'm releasing him? Because he voted with me. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
And that's it, he could just do that.
So my last word on it is, you're totally right, John, about don't let this one go. This one sucks too. Look, guys, he didn't get convicted for lying. If that was the case, almost all of Congress would be in jail, right? So no, he got convicted for actual fraud against other Americans, ripping them off, stealing their money, putting it in his pocket, in the form that that trial took, right? And by the way, it's not like Republican voters were clamoring for it. The overwhelming majority of the Republicans in his district hated him and wanted him out of office. This is just for the upper class elites who are like, oh, don't worry, if you commit fraud, I'll let you off. If you commit fraud, you'll let me off, or whatever. It's this kind of ass-slap football stuff. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene's done a lot of interesting and good things recently. This ain't one of them, right? So pushing for this pardon, but it is what it is. Everybody's different. God bless America. But he was convicted by his fellow citizens of serious crimes. We shouldn't let people off just because they like Donald Trump, or by the way, Joe Biden or Bill Clinton or anyone else.
100%. Okay, I know that you're really into this story, so let's do at least an abbreviated version of this, starting with this clip.
When you're asked about somebody saying a bad thing, whether you're right or you're left, of course you ought to condemn the bad thing that is being said. I don't even understand the logic of not doing that. You only get out of jail free if you ask to do so. You don't get it just because, like, preemptively. So you say something terrible, or you do something terrible, and people just preemptively forgive you. All that is an incentivization to do more of that thing. And I will say, finally, it actually is not sufficient to publicly proclaim you're not going to condemn these people while you don't say anything about their comments and instead just project to the other side.
So I don't know if it was intentional or if it just happened to happen, but Ben Shapiro there, he's referencing Politico's report about the Young Republicans racist group chat, and obviously since then there's been some criticism of it and consequences, which we'll get to, and then there's plenty of people who don't want to say anything about it or just say boys will be boys or just apologize for some of the most racist and anti-Semitic and violent comments that you can imagine seeing. And in doing that, he seemed to be taking very much the opposite side of one of his fellow Daily Wire hosts, that being Matt Walsh. So we'll get into some of the specifics, including the response there, but what do you make of this disagreement?
It's really interesting. So I don't want to say I side with Ben Shapiro. I don't want to say I side with either side for these two particular guys. But let's talk it out, because as you're gonna see here, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. I think it's a roller coaster ride. I think the comments are terrible, but there's different reasons why Ben Shapiro thinks they're terrible and Matt Walsh doesn't think they're so terrible.
Wait, are you implying that Ben Shapiro is not being as principled as he is implied that he is?
Yes, I am. In fact, I'm not implying that, I'm just saying
it's incendiary what you're doing, and I condemn you. And just in case, I also condemn Hassan Piker, just in case I run for mayor.
Right.
I want to get out there that I condemn it. It's a ridiculous debate there in New York. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about what actually happened. So this report comes out, you have this group of a number of young GOP leaders, not kids, let's be clear about that, who had this shared group chat over the course of 7 months. Now, the Young Republican National Federation has young Republicans, including some who are underage, a lot of them, 15,000 members. But this Telegram group chat was not rando kids like swearing while playing Roblox or whatever. These are the leaders. This is about a dozen people who are the leaders of this organization. And epithets like the F word, the R word, and the N word appear more than 251 times combined, which is a lot. There were references to gas chambers and the showers. There were references to watermelon people and monkey play basketball and all sorts of the most insane, over the top, bigoted comments you can imagine. And these are not randos. This is the bench for the Republicans. This is their next generation of leaders. Enthusiastic, just delighting in the fact that this is a private message. I can finally say what I really believe, and they did many times. Now, as a result of that, some of the individuals in the group chat have apologized. One member lost their job, 2 stepped down from their positions. Another had a job offer revoked. And so how should other Republicans and people on that side of the aisle respond to this? Well, there you can see Ben Shapiro implying that when someone has said a terrible thing, you denounce it. Although maybe not for the reasons he implies. We'll get to that with Cenk. Matt Walsh, who also works at the same organization as Ben Shapiro, says that conservatives need to avoid punching right. And he said this: during the gender ideology fight, I made it clear that I would happily align with liberal feminists who hate my guts for the purpose of defeating transgenderism. They mostly declined that invitation and turned around and disavowed me instead, which I expected, but the invitation was sincere. I will work with anyone to defeat an evil. This has always been my stance. And this is like a bit of an aside, but just to be clear, transgenderism is not a thing. Transgender people are a thing, and their identity, the identity of a person or a group of people, no matter how uncomfortable they make you, no matter how weirdly, bizarrely obsessed you are with them, that doesn't make it an ideology, it's just an identity that you have a problem with, just to be clear about that. But he goes on to say, when it comes to fighting the left and defeating the people who want to kill me and my family and piss on my grave, I will unite with anyone on the right, even those I don't like and who don't like me. If you think this is unprincipled or morally compromised, then you simply don't understand how to fight and actually win a battle. A fractured conservative movement will fail. Only a united front can succeed. If you reject this invitation just as the feminists did, that's fine, it's your right. It won't be the first time I've reached out my hand and gotten a hearty FU in response. It doesn't hurt my feelings, but it does hurt the cause, and that's what I care about. So just to be clear, he doesn't care about any of the things that they said, and I think he is being completely honest in that. I think he loves that stuff. I think that if you were able to see the contents of his private messages, you probably see some pretty wild stuff there too. And there's a lot of people on the so-called independent right that I'm sure are not only not wanting to condemn those people, but are probably rushing to their podcasts and their Rumble shows and all that to say how awesome it is. Because one of the major points, the populist side points of that movement, is to get people to feel comfortable doing exactly those sorts of things. Telling you, if you're prone to the same sort of bigotries that you saw in this young Republican group or whatever, that's actually not a bad thing. You shouldn't be condemned for that. You shouldn't seek to be better. And it's actually awesome. You should be unapologetic. And Matt Walsh has always, it's one form of his grift, the way that it takes is telling people that that's actually great. Now there's a strategic side to it too, and that's where the disagreement with Ben Shapiro really forms. But Cenk, what do you make about the actual disagreement and why you think they're taking the positions they are?
Yeah, so he's saying, look, we got to unite to win. And you've heard me sometimes say we got to unite with some folks, right? So where's the difference? Well, the difference is in the content, and that is everything. So he says, yeah, I want to be able to unite with these deeply hateful portion of the right-wing movement that refers to black people as N-word and talks about gas chambers and pro-Hitler and
the Jew.
It's and etc. Right? And of course, gay people are the F word, all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm good with it, right? So whereas on the Democratic side, when they say unite, usually in the past, that was just a talking point, and it was to get you to bow your head to establishment Democrats. Remember, they would say, like if Bernie was winning, they're like, no, attack him, attack, attack, attack. Everybody unite to attack Bernie, right? The minute that Bernie's losing and Hillary's winning or Joe Biden's winning, unite, unite, everybody, unite under our brand of corporate douchebaggery, right? And what would we always say? I would say, no, I'm not gonna unite on a thing I don't agree with. And then I got into some issues with some folks, a tiny amount, I think, but we'll see about that were in the radical left, etc. But they wanted me to unite on things I don't agree with. So I don't want to unite around that. What I want to do is something crazy. Unite around ideas we do agree on. Crazy, okay? So, and I think a lot of people in this country agree on a lot of giant ideas, like we all hate corruption. We all hate the money in politics. We all hate how much they rip us off on drug prices, etc. Right? So, okay, when Matt Walsh says unite with these guys, what he's saying is, I don't mind their opinions. Like they think that stuff, I'm good with it. I don't mind uniting with that. Right?
And he also thinks they need those people to win.
Yeah, and so that's a whole different animal, right?
He clearly thinks it's not just a couple people. If you can't denounce them and still win, it's enough people, you'll lose elections if you turn them off.
That's a great point, John. So that's the second point here, which is, how many do you think there are? Oh, so you think there are millions and millions and millions of Republican voters who believe those crazy, awful things. That's pretty telling. I didn't say it, Matt Walsh said it, right? Okay, and now to Ben Shapiro. Why is Ben Shapiro in favor of canceling these guys? Now, I've seen him defend people saying awful things. Cancel culture, they're trying to take your rights away to call black people the N-word. How dare they, right? Oh, but there were comments about Jewish folks. All of a sudden, he's like, no, well, sometimes we gotta cancel people. I mean, come on, right? And he did, and if you watch this whole longer thing, he's like, I mean, there's some lines have to be drawn socially, and those people have to be excluded from the conversation. Wait, that's literally cancel culture, right? And brother, I don't disagree with you. That's why I said in the beginning, I'm a little uncomfortable. I halfway agree with Shapiro on this one, because those guys weren't saying, hey, Israel has too much control or the genocide. No, they were like, Jew this, Jew that, right? Yeah. And so I don't want to unite with guys like that. And so Ben Shapiro is right on the content. Like, these guys are way beyond the pale, and don't do that. And by the way, when you do, you kind of smear the rest of that coalition, saying, yeah, we're all good with insulting women, black people, gay people, Jewish people like that. So hey, I think that's a giant political mistake on top of a moral mistake, right? But we have to also point out Shapiro's hypocrisy, right? He was good with all of it for his entire career until you got to his group. I'll tell you the last quick fun story. A friend of mine is Indian. We grew up together. We grew up listening to Howard Stern. We used to drive together to school, and he loved Howard Stern. And Howard Stern makes fun of everybody back in the day, in the 80s, 90s, et cetera. We're all having a laugh, right? And he made fun of Muslims all the time. You hear a Muslim name, he'd say guilty. Okay, and I laughed. It's funny, right? I thought he was joking, and I think he was joking. I think he's shown that, right? One day Howard Stern makes an Indian joke. My friend turns it off immediately. He's like, well, that just wasn't funny. Oh, so it's a little different when it hits your group, right? So I would say to Ben Shapiro, you might want to remember that the next time it's a different group, but those words will be lost on him.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, we got to go. You crazy? All right, when we come back, we have more amazing stories, including more good news. My God, it's one of the most conservative establishment Democrats makes a turn I did not see coming, and it is great news. We'll talk about that when we come back. Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. They'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's Jared's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream,
But I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes. All right, so you got a message for John Idarola?
Tell him to be nice to me.
Okay, that's a tough ask. Welcome back to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Jordan Uhl with you guys. My Bears 2 is also with us because they just became a member. Much love out there. So guys, I'm gonna read some comments a little bit later in the show from some conservatives and libertarians in our audience. I don't know, man, I'm full of hope today. So I think you'll like those comments. And then at the top of the next hour, dramatic announcement about someone who has joined the battle in our effort to unite the country and crowdsource a revolution. So that's coming up in a little bit. But Jordan has amazing news for you right now. What's up, Jordan?
Take a look at this.
The assemblyman will not denounce Hamas. The assemblyman will not denounce Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11.
Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa brawled for nearly 2 hours during the New York City mayoral debate last night. But as you can see, Cuomo wanted to discuss Hamas and Hassan Piker instead of New York City. And we have a lot more clips to show you, but first, Cenk, what is your impression of the debate overall? Who won?
Oh, Mamdani annihilated him. So they say, oh, you got to watch out. This guy's going to hurt people. No, only his political opponents. So we're going to get you some of the clips. You're going to see it with your own eyes, etc. But I was amused by the attack against a former TYT host. What's next in a presidential debate? You have to denounce Ricky Strom from TYT Sports and Brett Ehrlich from Happy Half Hour. Okay, this is you denounce them. Wow, what a turn things have taken. Okay, well, we'll see how many current and former TYT hosts must be denounced in future debates. But as you'll see, Cuomo's obsessed with only one thing during the entire debate: Israel.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, but I will say, to your point, Cenk, any candidate that denounces Brett Ehrlich will get my vote. So
that's fair.
I can be bought. But for context, Mamdani's critics have accused him of being soft on Hamas this week. And that's because of this exchange during Mamdani's Fox News interview. Take a look.
Do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there's peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law.
Now, as you saw, Cuomo also referenced a statement that Piker made in 2019. Mamdani was asked about Piker's comment last month before a press conference on the World Cup. In response, Mamdani stated, "I'm here to talk about the World Cup." And here's how Mamdani hit back at Cuomo's comments on Hamas and 9/11. Take a look.
I want to be very clear. The occupation is a reference to international law and the violation of it, which Mr. Cuomo has no regard for since he signed up to be Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team during the course of this genocide. And I find the comments that Hassan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible.
Now, here is what Mamdani is referring to. Less than a week after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu in 2024, Cuomo stated he would be part of Netanyahu's legal defense team. That team was assembled by Alan Dershowitz. Dershowitz stated that the ICC had brought false charges against the Israeli prime minister. Other notable members of Dershowitz's legal dream team, as he called it, include former Attorney General William Barr and Fox News commentator Mark Levin. Cuomo seems to think that courting big donors, especially donors who support the Israeli government, is a winning strategy. But if that's true, it would seem like Cuomo did not learn his lesson from the primary election. Andrew Cuomo was backed by the most well-funded super PAC in New York City election history, funded by donations from pro-Israel billionaires like Trump donor Bill Ackman, who gave $500,000, hedge fund manager Daniel Loeb, who gave $250,000 and also served as a fundraiser, and former mayor Michael Bloomberg, a staunch supporter of Israel and its war in Gaza, who contributed a staggering $8 million. Now, the super PAC they funded, Fix the City, spent more than $22 million on the mayoral race, and the mayoral race only. It ended up being responsible for effectively half, 49.5%, of all the outside spending in every single race, in a year with dozens of candidates and all 51 city council seats on the ballot. Another pro-Israel super PAC, Sensible City Incorporated, spent more than $100,000 opposing Zohran Mamdani. All told, pro-Cuomo forces raised a staggering combined total of $35 million, making the pro-Mamdani side's $9 million look measly. Yet Cuomo lost by 7 points anyway. So Cenk, you're seeing, like you said, a focus by Cuomo to bring the debate for the mayor of New York City to Israel, and you see all this money circling around him. People say the race is tightening now that Eric Adams has dropped out, but what do you think it'll look like come November?
Yeah, so I mainly want to talk about Andrew Cuomo being Israel's bitch. So, I mean, God, that debate was hilarious. He has not kissed Israel's ass enough. Did the check clear from Netanyahu? Okay, by the way, everybody on that legal defense team of Netanyahu, Mark Levin, Dershowitz, Bill Barr, who by the way, coincidentally happened to be the attorney general when Epstein was killed. I mean, hung himself, and Barr said, oh, it was definitely a suicide. You're never gonna guess who the first person to ever hire Jeffrey Epstein was. Bill Barr's dad. What an amazing coincidence. Anyway, they all are working for Israel now. So Cuomo's literally working for the Israeli prime minister. That's why the debate was about Israel and not New York City. And by the way, they're making a wonderfully terrible mistake. Part of the reason that Mamdani is winning is because he's trying with all of his might to focus on New York City and its voters, and they're like, yeah, but he hasn't kissed Netanyahu's ass. How dare he? No, the mayor of New York must not serve New York. They must serve Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Haifa. Said a bunch of bought ass bitches. So you get $35 million to make sure that Mamdani doesn't win because he won't kiss Israel's ass, and he's Muslim and they're bigots. They're all bigots. They all like, oh, anti-Semite, anti-Semite. I'm so worried about it, right? You're not worried about bigotry. You love bigotry. The minute there's a Muslim candidate, you're like, spend all the money against them. Let's destroy the Muslim. What happened? I thought you cared about bigotry. You don't care about that. And you don't even care about anti-Semitism. All you care about is your beloved, stupid Israel. So why don't you move to Israel? Why don't you get the hell out of our country? Spend the money over there, buying politicians over there. And then they say, I get to spend $35 million in a mayoral race in America on behalf of Israel, but you can't say I'm trying to control our politicians. Trope. Well, then don't do the trope, brother. I'm gonna say things that are true, empirically true. We just showed it to you. $35 million. Does that control Andrew Cuomo? Of course it does. Andrew Cuomo's a pathetic little, I keep wanting to say bitch because it's so fitting, right? Where he's like, Israel. Okay, go be mayor of Haifa, dude. Get the hell out of our country. We get it. They're literally paying you. They helped your campaign with $35 million. You're so bought. You're so pathetic. Good news. Republicans already hated you. Independents already hated you. Now most Democrats hate you. Okay, but maybe some Israeli donors like you or pro-Israel donors. So we'll go kiss their ass. Mission accomplished. That's what he's going to do. Not just now, for the rest of his life. So. Part of the reason why they care so much, because you might be wondering, God, why obsess about a mayoral race? Number one, it's in New York, and New York is one of the most Jewish cities in the world. So they're like, we can't lose New York. Because why? Well, there's several different reasons. One of them is that their whole BS talking point is, oh, no, Israel slaughtering 67,000 Palestinians at a minimum, having the worst civilian kill ratio on the planet, worse than any terrorist group in the world. That's according to IDF's own numbers. Israel murdering 20,000 children. That's not important at all, okay? No, what's important is my perceived theoretical anti-Semitism, because I'm actually trying to protect Jews. They're actually going after Jews. Now, when Jewish voters, especially young Jewish voters, vote en masse for the Muslim candidate who is not kissing Israel's ass, that's gonna hurt their talking point of, oh, it's all anti-Semitism. Like before, what they used to do is they used to make lists. I'm serious, pro-Israel groups in this country, Masada 2000, used to make lists of self-hating Jews, and they would try to pick them off one by one. They would do cancel culture against Jewish Americans because they hated the idea that they couldn't hide behind Jewish Americans. They wanted to use them as human shields. So whenever you criticize Israel, they go, no, you're attacking Jews. But nobody said Jews, nobody, except you guys, right? So they try to take those. Now when Mamdani wins in one of the most Jewish cities, not just in America, but in the world, there goes their excuse. And even more important than that, they want to put on an air of invincibility, right? We don't control anything. And if you say we're putting money into politics and you could prove it, we're gonna try to ruin your life and cancel you and fire you and I ruin you. But I don't control anything, I don't control anything. $35 million, but I don't control anything, I don't control anything. But the reality is they're actually upset, Jordan, because for the first time in my life, those donors, not all Jewish Americans, tons and tons of people that work at TYT are Jewish. We're never gonna let anybody harm Jewish Americans, never, okay? But for the first time, they think, whoa, Israel's loyalty pledge that they make every stupid, corrupt politician in this country take, in essence, it might not work. And we seemed invincible. It seemed like we were gonna make everyone bow down to the country we actually care about, Israel. But now Mamdani won't bow down and he's gonna win, and he's gonna win in New York. That's why they're spending a fortune to try to make an example out of Mamdani. But now everything is backfiring in spectacular fashion. And the real lesson we might learn if Mamdani wins is they don't have the power they thought they had. And it turns out, no, you're not invincible, brothers and sisters. You pro-Israel zealots, we see you now. And now that we see you, you can spend 35 million or 350 million, and you're not gonna win these elections.
Being told we gotta take a break.
All right, okay, we'll be right back. All right, let's go to Super Chat. David Rodriguez says, instead of making his case as to how he's going to improve New York City's people's lives, he attacked Cenk's handsome, darling, small-headed nephew. It's coup over for him. Yeah, God, I hope he gets humiliated. He's been bought his whole life, not just by Israel, by real estate developers, by the Chamber of Commerce, by any donors that comes along. That was Andrew Cuomo's whole point of existence, was the pleasure donors. So Sage and Candle says, now back into the real world. I just got to notice that SNAP will not be deposited due to government shutdown. These guys, man, they don't know what they're messing with. Like, tons of people are turning on Trump and what he's doing, because they're all seeing it. In fact, we're gonna get to some of them in a second here. Callie Millie Mo says, we need a wealthy progressive benefactor to make a donation to Trump in exchange for passing student loan debt forgiveness or get Snowden a pardon. I mean, look, I've kidded around about that before, and then Qatar kind of did it, where they gave him a $400 million jet, and then all of a sudden he started being really nice to Qatar. So can Trump be bought by almost anyone? Yeah. And by the way, almost the whole country wants Edward Snowden pardoned. The only people who don't are boomers who watch cable news, right? But other than that, like, the right wing wants him totally pardoned, the left wing totally wants him pardoned. Only the people in power don't want him pardoned. Jason Travis says, I'm an independent who voted for Trump, and I'm very socially conservative, but I'm progressive when it comes to economics, and I'll tell you, I didn't sign up for cutting Medicaid and calling fellow Americans terrorists. I love it, Jason. Attaboy. So that's a real American. So we disagree on some social issues. So what? We'll debate it, we'll fight over it, it's okay. And then we'll get to a conclusion, and then we'll do it again and again. That's the whole point of the country. But we're all Americans, stick together, and on economics, that's where they're robbing you blind. Don't let them rob you. Okay, Ali says, law and order my ass. Trump just commuted George Santos' sentence. If he gets the ring of the king, you get a free get out of jail free card. Well, hard to argue with that these days. Okay, and then Tom from Oz in the YouTube member section says, what does Hamas have to do with a mayor? Good question. You should tell everyone in the New York media and everyone else in the race. Mikey3343 says, unfortunate timing for anti-Semitic comments to show up in that group chat, as Republican politicians are calling everyone under the sun anti-Semites for criticizing Israel. And unfortunate indeed, they're now starting to call their own base anti-Semites. Massive, dramatic mistake. I shouldn't even talk about it on air. Oh no, keep going. Keep call your own voters anti-Semites over and over again. See how it turns out for you. Evita writes in, no King's protest tomorrow. See you out there. Show your love for Americans and stand up for America. Love it. Ronald Fan said, happy Friday, TYT family. To you and Cenk and John, he wrote in the first hour. Thanks for giving the fun news so I can make a fun of. And Cenk and John, you're both handsome like Fat Tony and Bart Simpson. Hey, wait a minute. Okay, handsome like what? Okay, anyway, you guys are fun. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. I'm going to read two quick comments from TYT.com members. Pessimistic Progressive says, I don't even know what Brett has done recently, but I also condemn him. Okay, there you go. That's another attaboy. And Art Guy writes in, I demand you announce Yasmin Aliyah Khan's choice of sophisticated interior design. Coming to you in a mayoral debate soon. All right, Jordan, what's next?
Take a look at this.
Look, I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What about AIPAC money? You take AIPAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime number of raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. By last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave $25 or less.
Now, we may have just caught Senator Cory Booker in a lie, and we'll explain how shortly. But that answer right there, Cenk, I want to get your initial thoughts. What do you make of Cory Booker's attempt to spin away his donations?
Yeah, I love it, man. I love all these guys getting caught. Every single one's reaction is AIPAC. What's AIPAC? I never AIPAC? What is it? Tupac? I never heard of it. Oh, that was a minuscule, this 871,000. But wait till you hear the real facts, which Jordan's about to bring you about what he's gotten this year. Then I'm gonna layer on top of that the secret way that they give them so much more money, including what Rabbi Shmuley of all people told me about how much the pro-Israeli lobby has given to Cory Booker over his lifetime. And that number is gigantic. So we'll get to that.
Now, that clip of Booker was from an interview with Jennifer Welch and Angie Pumps Sullivan of the I've Had It podcast. It was released on Thursday of this week, which Welch appears to be referencing the following graphic from AIPAC Tracker. Cory Booker has received $871,563 from the pro-Israel lobby, a minuscule amount as you heard him describe it. But despite its name, AIPAC Tracker reports on contributions from all pro-Israel groups. The graphic notes that Booker has received almost $900,000 in donations from 4 different groups, as well as individuals associated with those groups. Now that data was sourced from Open Secrets. AIPAC was not listed on that graphic, but according to Sludge, Senator Cory Booker has received donations from the AIPAC Political Action Committee for the first time in his career. Federal Election Commission filings show Booker received $481,175 from AIPAC's PAC during the first and second quarters of 2025 combined, followed by an additional $226,628 in the third quarter, which was disclosed just yesterday. As of AIPAC PAC's most recent FEC filing, Booker's campaign was the top congressional recipient of its contributions this year. So when you add the AIPAC money on top of the total previously reported by Track AIPAC, you get $1.5 million, Jank. A minuscule amount of money. What do you make of this?
Okay, guys, so there's so many more layers to this, and we're gonna ask you to call his office in a second because it's a great campaign that some progressives are doing. But first of all, that's even just a small part of the answer here. So the other day we covered a story for you guys where we showed you how much Larry Ellison had given to different people. But first he would interview them and make sure that they were pro-Israel. Then he would report back to the Israeli ambassador. This is according to leaked emails from Larry Ellison, the guy who owns Oracle and now owns half of American media, buying TikTok, CBS, Paramount, etc. And so if you look at the AIPAC tracker, Marco Rubio is only taking $1 million, but that's the stuff that we all know and is public. Then there's the stuff that goes to the super PACs, and that's where Larry Ellison alone, just one guy who's pro-Israel, gave $5 million to that super PAC to support Marco Rubio's campaign in 2016. So that's just for one campaign from one guy, and that's 5 times what the official number is. So then all of that doesn't even include the dark money. So they're funneling millions and millions and millions of dollars to these politicians. Why do you think they're all act like dogs of Israel? Like you're like, hey, we're in the middle of a genocide. All good Americans, Muslim, Christian, Jew, atheist, doesn't matter. We're all horrified by it, right? What are you doing? Stop giving them money. What are you rewarding them for a genocide? We've given them $21 billion in the middle of a genocide. But when you see the actual money going to these politicians, you begin to go, oh, I see. And by the way, that's if you're a good boy, you're gonna get an enormous amount of legalized bribery from people who are pro-Israel inside this country. But on top of that, if you defy Israel in any way, you're gonna get an enormous amount of money spent against you. So $4 million against Nina Turner, Marie Newman, Andy Levin. By the way, you've got black, white, Jewish, Christian, you got every group covered. They attack every kind of American that doesn't back Israel. But they started out with just spending $4 million a race. By the time they got to Jamal Bowman, I believe they spent $19 million against him. Now they've spent $35 million against Mamdani, and luckily that one's not working. But there is an enormous amount of pro-Israel money. Does that affect our politicians? Of course it affects our politicians. You'd have to be blind, deaf, and dumb not to see that it affects our politicians. You would have to be a recently escaped mental patient not to see $35 million affecting politicians. That's why last night you saw Andrew Cuomo's debate. All he was talking about was Israel. He barely ever even talked about New York. It was all Israel, Israel. He's not bowing down to Israel. Why? Because there's $35 million behind that. So that's how politics works in America. Now, there's wonderful people in America fighting back. So one of them is Robert Greenwald. So if you ever watch The Young Turks, you know I love that brother. He runs Brave New Films, and they're constantly doing amazing work. This one, they had this ad ready that they're releasing today before Cory Booker even went on that podcast. Why? Because they know the history of Cory Booker. So here's an ad they're gonna run in not just New Jersey, his home state, but across the country about Cory Booker. Watch.
Over 25 hours on the Senate floor, Cory Booker never once mentioned the tens of thousands killed in Gaza or the billions in US dollars fueling Israel's war machine.
When the rights of some are violated, they are a threat to the rights of all of us.
The US has provided over $20 billion in weapons for Israel's war in Gaza.
Are we going to defend democracy or behave like the authoritarians that we should be against?
Booker's taken nearly $900,000 from pro-Israel donors. Call Senator Booker and tell him to vote yes to block the sale of US arms to Israel.
Yeah, so look, first of all, do that. Here, let me give you the number. And this is Brave New Films putting this out. Go, and you don't have to be angry about it, guys. Just super easy. There's all of his numbers, especially the Washington, D.C. number. That's 202-224-3224, 202-224-3224. Just be polite. Just say, hey, listen, we want you to serve New Jersey. That's not too big an ask, right? Why are you taking so much money from Israel? Okay, well, you know what? Forget the money you took from Israel. I don't care what money you took from Israel, okay? But I need you to stop sending money to any country that's in the middle of a genocide. That's not a high ask. That's a very low bar for an ask. That's a bare minimum of ask. I don't care if it's Cambodia, Israel, Turkey, any country that's doing a genocide. Don't send them $20 billion. Look, Brave New Films is amazing. They also did Journalists Under Gaza, Journalists Under Fire. Go to bravenewfilms.org and check that out because they showed all the over 200 journalists killed by Israel in the war. There's Holocaust survivors in that movie. If you could just stomach that 41-minute movie and still support Israel's actions in Gaza, I say, okay, well, I mean, I think you've lost your humanity, but wow, I guess you mean it, right? But it's impossible to sit through that movie. It's a short movie, but it's impossible to sit through it and not have your heart broken by what Israel's doing in Gaza. And there's, like I said, there's Holocaust survivors going, no, don't, what are you doing, right? So there's such wonderful Americans here fighting back to try to help the Palestinians and also preserve our sovereignty. So look, I think the Cory Bookers of the world are living in the past. And so I promise you this, so I'll tell you this, and then we'll catch up to the future, which is, so I debated Rabbi Shmuley Boteach at Oxford Union. I debated him a couple of different times, God help me, and also God help him. So anyways, afterwards, he told me something strange. Now look, take it with a massive grain of salt, not the most reliable source. But he told me that the pro-Israel lobby had given Cory Booker $26 million back when Obama was in office. And that when Cory Booker backed Obama on signing the peace deal to get uranium out of Iran so they would not be able to have nukes, it was a great deal, Cory Booker signed on to it. Rabbi Shmuley said they cut off Cory Booker from then on and didn't give it to him for a long, long time. Now, obviously they're back to giving to him. Now, again, I don't know if Rabbi Shmuley is telling the truth, but that is an amazing thing to say. And if that scale is correct, then the pro-Israel groups have been giving, and really, let's be honest, purchasing our politicians. And they're not the only ones. Big Pharma does it, the defense contractors do it, oil companies do it, but they're all purchasing our politicians. I love that Brave New Films is fighting back. All of you can fight back. And they have a 90-second version of that as well. So yeah, it's time for these representatives to actually represent us and not corporations or foreign governments.
Well, I wouldn't take that guy's word verbatim. Looking through his financial records, nothing seems to indicate that if there was a sum of that much, it would be outside of election contributions and would implicate something I think much more serious, which I don't, as the criticisms of Cory Booker on this, I think are justified. I don't think that we think he's taking money on the side. But when there's two things. This idea that he doesn't take corporate PAC money is a recent pivot trying to save face in a new political climate where it's more popular to do that. You're seeing a lot of people who have in the past, and we'll get into more, now abandon it. But this idea that, oh, he's dismissing all the old money, oh, that's lifetime. Let's look at what it means for Cory Booker to be a lifetime recipient of pro-Israel money. From his first election into the Senate, he was taking pro-Israel PAC money. And his voting record over the years supporting anti-BDS legislation, which has then over time led to punishment, crackdowns on pro-Palestinian speech. That is how those laws take effect. Censorship. That's what Cory Booker supports. And even to this day, even recently, he was in a photograph, although he tried to hide in the back of the crowd, with Netanyahu, and he has been nearly silent on this issue. He can't find the words for a guy who can filibuster for hours and hours on end for a fundraising attempt, who can make big, grandiose statements in Senate hearings, suddenly just can't find the words on something that is crystal clear to the rest of us. And this is somebody who for years has talked about the legacy of South Africa's apartheid. Cory Booker is not stupid. He knows what's happening in Gaza. He knows what's happening in the West Bank. He knows what's happening to Palestinians. He's deliberately ignoring it because he has taken money from pro-Israel PACs his entire political career.
Yeah, so last things here. Guys, let me double down on what Jordan's saying. So first of all, Rabbi Shmuley didn't say they gave him the money directly. He said campaign contributions. But even more importantly, it was Rabbi Shmuley. So you don't necessarily believe it at all. I'm just relaying to you what he said to me. I didn't believe him either. But whatever it is, seems like it was a big number. But even if you don't believe any of that, right? And even if you get into his past, you don't get into the super PACs, you don't get into the dark money, we already know at least $1.5 million. I mean, that's a bare minimum. And then mainstream media in America will say, oh no, $1.5 million would never affect our politicians because they're so holy. They're nearly saints. That's why that kind of money would normally affect anyone, but it doesn't affect them because they're, I guess, morally superior to us, right? No, of course it affects them, of course. And you can see it with your own eyes. And so, look, mainstream media is gaslighting you in mass to cover up the giant corruption. They never talk about the money in politics when money in politics drives 99% of what happens. Finally, look, speaking of morally uprighteous or not, if you're taking millions of dollars to support a genocide, that's morally depraved. Sorry, I know we're supposed to be civil to one another, but is it civil to send $21 billion to murder 20,000 Palestinian children? To drop bombs on their heads and have their heads explode? Is that civil? Oh, I know, but you got paid. No, I'm sorry, but that's morally depraved. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, there is good news among Democrats that are turning on this issue. We'll be right back. Yeah, we're back here. Callie Millie Mo writes in on Super Chat, Cenk, regarding some niche talking points on Barr, go look into 2 Lolita-type books Donald Barr wrote. That's Bill Barr's dad who hired Jeffrey Epstein for his first job. Also, William Barr and Epstein went to 8th grade camp together. There's a picture of them. Man, that is so weird. These elites are apparently a much tighter group of people than I realize. I mean, it has like eyes wide shut kind of energy for them. Anyways, and YouTube members, Thomas of Thomas says, Cory Booker is a classic modern politician. $1.6 million in donations is small, so your $25 means nothing to me. Yeah, of course it means nothing to him. Of course what do you think is easier? Collecting it 25 bucks at a time or $1.5 million at a time? That's why they kiss Israel's ass. That's why Matt Gaetz said they went to campaign events where they would go and kiss the ring of his donors who were pro-Israel, and they'd have a big QR code, and his pro-Israel donors would scan them like they were at a grocery store. I'll buy this one for Israel. I'll buy this one for Israel. Oh, no, you didn't kiss enough. Get down on your knees. Okay, fine, good. Now QR code, buy them. Well, no, trope. Well, do they do it? They are doing it. So you can take your trope and move over there with it. Okay, so. All right, Meowser's Clause that established me out, writes in on TYT.com. All right, you get me to laugh every time on it. Okay, Booker seems shocked that anyone would ask him about donors despite how fundamental it is to his behavior. You can see him realize in real time he wandered too far outside the mainstream media bubble, 100%. But remember, all these guys were pampered by the deeply corrupt mainstream media who kissed their ass the entire time, never asked them tough questions, never asked them about their campaign donations, never asked them who they were actually working for. And there, I'm not talking about Israel, I'm talking about drug companies, I'm talking about all the donors, That's who Cory Booker, that's who 90% of Democrats and 99% of Republicans work for. So, but mainstream media's job is not to tell you that, it's to cover that up. They're the getaway driver for the great American robbery. And Turkish Taffy pointed out one of the reasons Booker won't endorse Mamdani, of course, because his owners told him not to. Owner donors, as Nina Turner says. Lobbyist for Big Poor says, to me, the No Kings rally on June 14th felt like a proud to be an American rally. My understanding of tomorrow, it feels like another opportunity to celebrate being American. As a vet, I'll be flying Old Glory, loud and proud. Love it. We'll see you in a second. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan, Fat Satter, who gifted 10 memberships. You're awesome, brother. Box 1 and Lady AF 5. You guys are all great. Jordan, what's next?
Yesterday, Democratic Representative Seth Moulton announced that not only would he not be taking any money from AIPAC anymore, but he would be returning all of the money that he has received from AIPAC. He wrote, I'm cautiously optimistic that a recent breakthrough in Gaza will move us closer to ending the horrific violence in the region. A political resolution that allows Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in peace is exactly the kind of framework I've been calling for from the beginning. I support Israel's right to exist, but I've also never been afraid to disagree openly with AIPAC when I believe they're wrong. In recent years, AIPAC has aligned itself too closely with Prime Minister Netanyahu's government. I'm a friend of Israel, but not of its current government. And AIPAC's mission today is to back that government. I don't support that direction. That's why I've decided to return the donations I've received and will not be accepting their support. Now, the timing of Moulton's announcement is interesting for 2 reasons. One, Moulton just announced that he will be challenging Democratic Senator Ed Markey for his seat in next year's election. And 2, Track AIPAC posted the following in response to Moulton's Senate announcement. As you can see here, he's taken over $119,000 from the pro-Israel lobby. Now, in response to Moulton's post, the official AIPAC X account wrote, Representative Seth Moulton is abandoning his friends to grab a headline, capitulating to the extremes rather than standing on conviction. His statement comes after years of him repeatedly asking for our endorsement and is a clear message to AIPAC members in Massachusetts and millions of pro-Israel Democrats nationwide that he rejects their support and will not stand with them. AIPAC and our 5 million members are US citizens who support a strong US-Israel alliance. Our mission is to promote policies that strengthen this critical partnership that advances America's interests and democratic values. This strategic relationship is bigger than any government at any particular time in either country. Cenk, are you surprised by this? Moulton is a blue dog.
I'm not surprised. I'm shocked. When I saw the news come out, I was like, no, Seth Moulton? So when AIPAC says he has repeatedly asked for our endorsement, that is true. So Seth Moulton is a corporate establishment Democrat, is one of the most conservative Democrats. And so that's why this news is so important. That's why AIPAC's in a panic. Because if this guy's saying, not only am I not going to take AIPAC money anymore, I'm returning their money. Their money is toxic. I don't want it. Here, take it back. Wow, that's a sea change in American politics. And so, look, right now, if you go online, my God, the Israelis have bought every bot farm, every troll. They've got an army out there. They all do the same talking points. Oh, it's really Qatar and China buying up everyone. You shouldn't hate Israel. You should hate Muslims. Oh, Tucker Carlson and all these, but every one of them. Oh, you know what? This war's over already. Why are you guys still paying attention to it? Oh, you're boring. Oh, let's move on. Let's move on, right? It's like, and if you guys didn't see, they did a deal with one of the biggest PR firms in Washington, D.C., and then that firm had to roll it back, and because they had said that they were going to buy bots for Israel, then they're like, oh, no, we didn't mean it, we didn't mean it. No, you're caught, brothers and sisters, you're caught. And if you lost Seth Moulton, you're in a world of trouble. Now, so why did Seth Moulton do it? It's not complicated. You know what politicians do first? They do a poll. If you hear a politician saying, I don't care about polls, liar, it's never true. They're obsessed with polls, okay? So first of all, there's a giant national poll even before you get to Massachusetts. So what percentage of Democratic voters oppose Israel's actions in Gaza? Has it got to 51%? Oh, well then that's a majority. You're gonna have to go with a majority of your voters, right? Oh wow, like 59%. That's a massive majority of your voters. You're really gonna have to go in that direction. 92% of Democratic voters oppose Israel's actions in Gaza. By the way, 92% of Democrats, that's a rough number, okay, in Congress support Israel's actions and fund Israel's actions. So coincidentally, 90% of Congress has gotten campaign donations from the Israeli lobby. And that same 90% votes with Israel every single time. Before, they never got caught because mainstream media is evil. And mainstream media would cover up their crimes. And they never tell you about the money. They never tell you that they work for foreign governments and corporations. And in fact, they smear anyone who does tell you. They're like, oh, that's anti-Semitic. Is it true? Yeah, it's totally true. But shut up, you're never allowed to say, wait, I thought you guys were reporters and your job was to follow the money and tell us what actually happened. No, our job is to cover up what happened. That's why they're also flabby. You saw Cory Booker and so many other Democrats asked about AIPAC. It's the most obvious question these days. And they're like, what? AIPAC, are you allowed to ask real questions? Where's mainstream media? Where's mainstream media? So, but now none of that matters because the internet has swarmed and everybody knows. And the polls are already in. And Massachusetts is one of the more liberal states, as we all know. So if you're gonna run against Ed Markey, and Ed Markey's a solid progressive, if you wanna win in a primary, you don't have a choice. What are you gonna do, go against 92% in Massachusetts, maybe 95% of your own voters and try to win an election? That's not gonna happen. So that's why even Seth Moulton has to say, no, the AIPAC money is toxic and there's no chance I can win if I seem like their servant, so I am no longer their servant. That's a great development in America.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it is he's an opportunist. I don't trust him, and I think Markey has shown he's committed in a deep, substantive way on fighting against climate change. He fought for the Green New Deal and then fought for, while that wasn't implemented, it wasn't actually passed, he fought for at least robust climate provisions in Biden's Build Back Better host of legislation. So if I came down to it, I'd still probably lean Markey, but it is progress and it's worth celebrating, and it's a testament to people's advocacy. not shutting up when this administration or the Biden administration tried to silence you, not falling for these traps where they're trying to label you as anti-Semitic simply for criticizing Israel. We certainly wouldn't condone or accept actual real anti-Semitism. That is wrong, but simply criticizing Israel and the government and what it's doing is not that. And remaining steadfast. But I also want to point out that account, while that track AIPAC, one of many different components in this fight, has been really effective, and those graphics are now synonymous. People copy them. It's become a meme. It's a big piece of internet culture right now, and it's about transparency and money in politics. It's great. It's a brilliant campaign. And one exciting development on that front, Cenk, I think you'll be encouraged by, their next pivot is to oil pack money. And they're going to do the same thing for legislators who take money from big oil.
Oh, I love it. And remember, guys, big oil gets 10 times the subsidies Israel does on a yearly basis. They've been robbing us way more effectively. And so I love that pivot. And finally, the thing that I love most is that now Democratic politicians have to decide between pro-Israel money and their voters, because you're not going to be able to get both. New day in America. All right, when we come back, public episode for everyone on crowdsourcing the revolution. Can we really unite the left and the right? Oh my God, do I have massive news for you. So don't miss it. Jordan, you're awesome, brother. Everybody else, stay right here, and we'll give you that announcement when we come back. All right, exciting news in the revolution front. So what I told you guys now a couple of weeks ago was, hey, we're gonna try to do something where we get our country back, get our government back, get our democracy back. And what that means is fight against the corruption of money in politics and have folks serve us. So not foreign governments like Israel, Qatar, or anyone else, and not corporations like big oil, big pharma, etc. So well, one of the first things that people were skeptical, but I've got big news for you now. So we asked people to chip in on a couple of different ideas we had and come up with new ideas, and I have amazing developments on that too. But one of the things we're working on is Ro Khanna's bill in the House, and so that is to lower drug prices. Now, I say Ro Khanna's bill because he introduced it, but in fact, it has more Republican co-sponsors than Democratic co-sponsors. And why is that? Because Ro did something really smart and interesting. What he did was he introduced Donald Trump's executive order on lowering drug prices as a bill, word for word. So if you're a Republican, there's no reason why you would object, right? And if you're a Democrat, that's actually Democratic policy. Great, wonderful, country's united. So out of 435 members of Congress, there's only 5 that have signed on as co-sponsors. The other 430 is like, yeah, we didn't really mean it. Or they don't know about it. And so what we said was, well, why don't we go tell them about it and see once you tell them, will they actually join on? And once we started telling them, we found out through some Congress people that they really didn't know about it. And then when they see it, they're like, oh, that's pretty good. We have a number of congressmen who are right now, because you guys reached out to them, saying, I'm gonna think about it.
Okay, all right, that's good progress. We're getting somewhere. At least we got their attention. And then all of a sudden today, we have a new co-sponsor. But first, let me show you the current co-sponsors. So on the Democratic side, you got Ro Khanna and you got Marcy Kaptur, two good progressives. And on the Republican side, Anna Paulina Luna, Andy Biggs, and Elijah Crane. So those are some serious right-wingers, okay? But look at that, that's beautiful, that's America, okay? That's right wing, left wing getting together. Now, I'd like to add one more person. On which side? On which side? The Republican side. The new person co-sponsoring that same bill is Marjorie Taylor Greene. What in the world is going on? Is this country getting united? Is that what's going on? Do we have a left-right coalition? But this time, for the first time, for the American people. I've seen tons of left-right coalitions in Congress for the corrupt, for the oil companies, the defense contractors, everyone robbing us blind. Oh, they'll get your coalition behind that, 98% of them back it every time. And then mainstream media will come in and go, oh, what great bipartisanship. Boy, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and John Cornyn and John Thune for making yet another corrupt deal that takes Americans' money, hard-earned money, and sends it to a foreign government or to a giant corporation that doesn't need it at all, but has bribed all of you. I mean, they did a debate and they're wonderful, honest politicians. Well, so that's all a load of BS, as you all know. But now, for the first time, that people have woken up and see the corruption. Some legislators have been liberated, and they're now acting on behalf of, I know this is strange and crazy, but in a democracy, they're acting on behalf of their voters. So why do we have some of the most progressive and some of the most conservative lawmakers backing the same bill here? Because it lowers drug prices for everyone. It doesn't lower it just for Republicans. It doesn't lower it just for Democrats. It lowers it for everyone. So who wouldn't want that? Every real American would want that. And by the way, it's not magic, you can't do that. No, you can do that. It's what it is saying, hey, we're gonna pay the same amount as the average of other developed nations. The drug companies already make a killing in those countries. So it's not like they can't make a profit at that number, they can. They're just choosing to overcharge us massively. And why are they doing that? Because our politicians let them. But now for the first time, we got at least 6 people here in Congress going, I don't think I'm gonna let them anymore. No, I'm not interested in you ripping off Americans and making us pay so much more than every other country. Why do we have to pay so much more than the Germans, than the Canadians, than the French? Why do we have to get robbed so that you can make trillions more? It's not like the pharmaceutical companies aren't spectacularly wealthy. They are. So everybody's getting caught. Everybody's getting caught. So now Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the way, is that because of us? Yeah, definitely. So we reached out, one of you suggested it, and you could go back on an old show. Somebody wrote in and said, hey, Cenk, why don't you reach out to Marjorie Taylor Greene? We did, and she said, hold on, I gotta look into it. She looked into it, and she's like, yeah, where's the question? Lower drug prices is Trump's executive order, word for word. Where's the question? By the way, so now look, you see, now we're making progress. Now we're on the board, okay? So hundreds of you have already written, and let's make it thousands, okay? And just go wild. Don't not wild as in being angry or anything. No, we're always polite. We're a peaceful, nonviolent revolution. But as former Congresswoman Marie Newman explained on this show yesterday, she gave us a little tutorial on how to affect Congress people, because she was a Congressperson, right? Make sure you're checking that out. She said, yeah, they're your representatives. You're supposed to reach out to them. They're supposed to listen to you. And if you go into their office, they will, but you gotta be polite. And because all we're doing is we're asking them to, they're supposed to be representatives. We're asking you to represent us and not the drug company. So why don't the others? As Marie Newman explained, because money, it's not complicated. They take tons, both Republicans and Democrats take tons and tons and tons of money from drug companies. But hey, look at what just happened with AIPAC. They just got caught, and what happened was, all of a sudden, Seth Moulton, one of the most conservative Democrats, gave AIPAC's money back. He said, I'm not taking any more, and here's your money back. Why? Because in mass, definitely not just us, we're a tiny piece of it, but in mass, the internet, the online world, their own voters said, no. You're gonna have to choose between, in that case, donors for Israel or your voters, but you can't have both. The days of you having both are over. So you're gonna have to make a choice, your donors or your voters. And even Seth Moulton said, all right, no mas, my voters. That is a spectacular development. In fact, one of you guys wrote in about that. I want to read that to you real quick. And I want to read you one of the things that somebody wrote in about unity. Liz Smith is a YouTube member and she wrote in, I'm taking credit for Seth Moulton, LOL. I emailed him about the Ro Khanna bill, the one I just told you about. They say they're looking at it for whatever that's worth. But guess what, Liz? It might be worth a lot. Because number one, reaching out to the members of Congress is working. Number two, affecting Seth Moulton through voters is also working. So go get them, go get them. They're your representatives. You have every right to ask for, to insist upon, and to demand action. And again, Marie talked about this last night. There's nothing wrong with being insistent. Don't be rude, don't be impolite, don't be physical, obviously, right? But outside of that, no, we're very polite, but we're not leaving. We're gonna really need you to lower drug prices. And I don't mean like you do a sit-in or anything. Yes, we talk kidding around, but not really kidding around. You could do this. Go to their district office, whoever your congressman is, do some research, find your district office, and we'll help you coordinate, by the way. And I'll talk about that in a second. And go start having lunch at their office and say, look, I'm just not gonna leave until you agree to sign on to this bill. If you're a Republican, it's Trump's executive order. And it's lowering drug prices. Where's the question? If you're a Democrat, you told me this was your policy for decade after decade after decade. Where's the question? Introduced by a Democratic representative. Where's the question? Okay? No, I'm gonna stay here until you say yes. Oh, but you're violent, but I'm not violent. You're a terrorist, but I'm not. You're this, you're that, you're anti-Semite, but I'm not. I'm not any of those things. I'm just your voter, and I'm politely insisting, and I will continue to insist that you be my representative and not anyone else's. Congrats to Marjorie Taylor Greene for doing the right thing. And now guys, they say, oh, you're only gonna have unity about Israel or something else, right? Now all of a sudden we got unity on drug prices. What are you gonna do now? When real, not fake unity that we've had throughout our lives, when real unity starts to break out among the citizens, that's when the establishment's gonna panic. And I love the smell of establishment panic in the morning. All right, so now more good news. Speaking of the battle being joined, on Monday, Keith Knight shows up. Who is he? He's managing editor of the Libertarian Institute. And he said, oh, you guys are fighting corruption. Count me in, let's go. It's go time. So, the establishment might be in a wee bit of trouble. I mean, this is just the kernel, just the beginning. But all of a sudden, what is that I see? Is that blue I see? Is that a little bit of hope I see? Okay, that's it. Reference to an old school poem that I wrote. Oh, don't ask. Okay, so then now this is all about the people, right? So what I did yesterday was I took tweets that you guys sent to Tim Burchett, Representative Tim Burchett. He's a Republican. He was on Tucker Carlson's show. Is a kind of a populist. We hope he's a populist. So he's a good person to ask. We asked Mark Bocan on the left. He's a good progressive populist, etc. And then, but we asked. So I retweeted your guys' tweets. And do it on any social media you got. You're getting any kind of traction, send it into us. First, let me tell you about the coordination, then I'll tell you what you guys voted on. So if you want to discuss these ideas and you want to see the other ideas that have been put on the board, go to tyt.com/ideas. That's the discussion board for this, tyt.com/ideas. If you want to coordinate, hey, and I'll give you an example in a second. But I got to coordinate with our community director who's in charge of this Operation Hope project, that's Cara Eastman. Then email her at hope@tyt.com, hope@tyt.com. So what are they coordinating on? First of all, we talked about the kids of Gaza. That's something else that we all agree on. Hey, we got to stop killing these kids with American tax dollars. It's crazy, it's nuts. So I said, imagine if we did a site where you got the kids' pictures and their little bio, and then you see if they're dead or alive. Well, now there's a new twist on it. There's a kid in Gaza. We're going to talk about it in future episodes more. He's an American. The Israelis have kidnapped him and they won't return him and they won't tell us where he is. He's an American citizen. Nah, this is too much. And we could put him on Kids of Gaza. And if anybody, by the way, there are American kids. There are a bunch of American kids were killed in the West Bank. Again, our government asked for no accountability at all. I mean, total dogs. Don't tell me they're not dogs of Israel. When Israeli settlers and the IDF kill American citizens and we don't even ask for justice, that's crazy. That Israeli government official who went and tried to rape an American girl in Vegas and we got him a get out of jail free card and a ticket back to Israel? Nah, no. Look, my twist on America First is Americans first. What happened to us? You start representing us, right? So, but we live by our creed. So the two developments there. Number one, we care about what you guys think. So we had a bunch of website names. We bought a bunch of URLs to start a new site, which you guys suggested. Well, I started talking about it, but then you guys built on the idea and said, wait, what if we take all these donors that you keep talking about and start doing a site, not like Open Secrets. Open Secrets is amazing, by the way. So that shows you some of the donors and that are public, et cetera. But what if we connected for each representative or senator, all their donors, and then their voting record and see if it matches up? Spoiler alert, it definitely will. I'm curious about what the percentage is going to be. If we get this thing built, it'll be spectacular. And at the end, we'll tabulate, maybe use AI. What do we got there? Oh, it turns out it matches 98%. Okay, so we'll see. Anyway, so a bunch of people are working on that. If you're one of those folks, you got to coordinate with cars, so hope@tyt.com. But we asked you guys to pick a URL. You vote on it. We're not deciding, you're deciding. And it was a tight contest. We had it in the live chat. We had it on tyt.com, boughtbills.com, corruptionwatch.us, trackcongress.com, trackdonors.com, and trackcorruption.us. Well, which one won? Drum roll. Corruptionwatch.us. So that site that has all of the donors and all the votes that we're beginning to build will be at the URL corruptionwatch.us. You guys picked that, so we're going with what you want on that. By the way, so we're now out to more Congress people. And I want you to be out to more. I want it to be uncontrollable. This is decentralized. Since we're peaceful and nonviolent and we love democracy and we love the Constitution and we love America, they got nothing to complain about. All we're doing is insisting our most basic right as Americans, okay? So go and insist politely to all these representatives. No reason why you shouldn't sign on to it. And by the way, it's HR 3493. And you can always refer back to tyt.com/hope if you forget that, obviously. And we have some verbiage there too. You could use your own words. But HR 3493, Global Fairness in Drug Prices Act, and that's what we want. We want global fairness. Why do we have to pay so much more than the French do or the Japanese do? It's not fair. Okay, so we've also reached out to Representative Jayapal, former head of the Progressive Caucus. See how that goes. And now, one of the ways that we're gonna help, and then I'll get to more comments, suggestions, ideas, etc., is, and I wanna read you one more comment from our members from the show. But first, what I promised, the Operation Hope Working Group, which this began from, a dedicated core group of TYT viewers and members who were wonderful enough to be volunteering this whole time, trying to build this behind the scenes. They started organizing people by state. So Henry, one of the great folks on there, created chat rooms on discussion board for each state. So if you want to get involved with the people in your state, check out the discussion board, then click on state organizing. So that's now this is a different URL. I know we got two different discussion boards, but it makes sense. This is for the states and some other discussions. And then we have tyt.com/ideas for the ideas one. But anyway, this one to organize the states is at discuss@tyt.com. Discuss@tyt.com. Okay. So now, okay. Don Data Dragon wrote in during the show, but it applies perfectly here about unity, because we were talking about unity in the context of another story. And he wrote in, coming from a guy who didn't cut off my Republican friends for being Republican, no, I can say with certainty, Cenk is right. My buddy who voted for Trump literally said, every time he talks, I lose my sanity. My friend's biggest issue is the Israel funding, by the way. He's very mad about how much they've gotten versus South Carolina's hurricane cleanup effort. You just can't get more legitimate than that. That is right. Look, it's a heavily Republican area, but it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. They're Americans. They should be our top priority. Why is our top priority giving $35 billion to oil companies? Why is our top priority giving $21 billion to Israel in the middle of a genocide? Why is our top priority making sure we are not allowed to negotiate drug prices so collectively we pay billions, maybe even trillions more? No, those aren't our priorities. Those are the priorities of corrupt politicians. So that's why it's corruptionwatch.us. Anyway, so look, that's those sites we're building, kidsofgaza.com. If you're working on that, again, reach out to Cara at hopetyt.com. Okay, guys, I can't begin to tell you how excited I am. So I know it's just the beginning, and maybe it goes nowhere, maybe it dissipates, right? But I'm sensing in the zeitgeist in a massive way. You know how I get these spidey senses? I'll say I'll brag for a second, but it's not really bragging because it's you guys, right? And here, let me explain. So in 2013, I did a video saying that I think Bernie Sanders could beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. That's when he was polling at 1%, okay? Now, why did I sense that? Not because like I divine it out of the blue, I have some magical abilities. No, I'm reading what you guys are writing. I'm watching what you guys are saying. And there was a groundswell for Bernie that nobody else was seeing, but we're paying attention to because we're connected to you guys. But it's not just for Democrats. I said in October of 2015, 3-4 months before they started voting, Donald Trump's gonna win the Republican nomination. Again, oh, you're crazy, et cetera. Now, why did I know that? So again, it's not divining it. I'm watching Republicans saying they love Donald Trump all over, online, everywhere else, right? But the people on TV are like, oh no, our dude a clown, he's a clown, obviously he can't win. So it's all just a theater until we get to beloved Marco Rubio or wonderful Jeb Bush, right? Well, they were all wrong and we were right. And so what I'm seeing now is unity for the first time in my life. It's begun. The libertarians are coming on Monday. Marjorie Taylor Greene came today. It's gonna keep on going and going and going. It might not be us, it might be somebody else, but somebody's gonna organize this thing. God, I love you guys. All right, more suggestions, so let's do these. Teddy Lucy Linda said, Cenk, you should reach out to US Representative Pat Ryan. He's totally in alignment with us. That's another good suggestion. Pat Ryan's a bit of a populist. There's some things that are some issues I don't agree with him on. Guess what? Some issues I don't agree with literally every member of Congress. Who cares? That's not the point of this project. So great suggestion, wonderful. Let's definitely try that. Oh, by the way, guys, the point of tyt.com/ideas is to not just discuss the ideas that are already on the board, but create new ones. So for example, there's another one, there's two more that we've been united on all along, which is, one is Epstein files. So if you have a genius idea on how to make these sons of guns actually give us the Epstein files, the real Epstein files, I'm all ears. We're all ears. Because all the Republican voters want it, all the Democratic voters want it. Only people who don't want it are weirdly the pro-Israel folks. Telling on yourself, okay? Those are literally them and the establishment are the only people who don't want the Epstein files released. That is that's like 1% of the country, maybe 2%. The rest of us want the Epstein files and we want to know who actually did it. So if you have a genius idea on how to make them reveal, look, the one thing you can do, so Mike Johnson still won't seat the woman who won in Arizona, Grijalva. And why is he not seating her? It's wildly illegal not to seat her. She won the election, where's the question? He's like, yeah, but I know if we seat her, they're gonna have enough votes for you guys to see the Epstein files and I don't want you to see them because I'm guilty and all the elites are guilty. That's what Mike Johnson's telling you. So I told Democrats for 20 years, don't believe Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and the rest. Nancy Pelosi literally took over $1 billion in campaign donations from corporate donors, foreign governments, et cetera. Not foreign governments directly, but people who are in favor of foreign government. And so did Mitch McConnell. If you think Mitch McConnell's corrupt, I got bad news for you. Nancy Pelosi took almost the same exact money, right? And then doles it out to other Democrats. And Joe Biden got caught, Andrew Cuomo got caught, now Cory Booker's caught. And on the Republican side, if you think they're not all taking money and serving Israel and oil companies and defense contractors, you got another thought coming to you, brother. But good news, by the way, they don't think that. Mitch McConnell got caught. Now his own side hates Mitch McConnell. Why? Because he was the heart of corruption. So Go get him, guys. All right, Sagacious Dragon, I'm reading these blind, says, when you call your congressional representative, be polite and respectful, but tell them you're angry if you are. Remember that you're talking to a staffer who's simply conveying your concerns up to the hierarchy. The congressional switchboard telephone is 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Call it early and often. And guys, you can say to the person that you're talking to, hey, listen, I appreciate you taking my call. I appreciate you caring about me. I want to convey to you that I'm angry about this issue because it affects me personally, it bothers me, but I'm not angry at you, okay? And please pass this message on. I want the representative to know that his voters are frustrated, okay? So that makes sense. Velvet X Ears writes in, I sent a message to my representative Joe Morrell about the drug price bill, and he responded, but did not address whether he would look at the bill. He just spouted off talking points about all the things he's fighting for. How should we respond when they don't address our specific concern and just deflect? Okay, what I would say is write back and go, hey, I really appreciate you responding, but what I was asking about was this particular bill, and since you're so good at responding, I'd love it if you responded to that specific question because it affects me so much. So I'm your voter and I'd love to keep voting for you, but you really got to deliver on this. And it's what I'm asking is a fair ask. Which way are you going to go on this bill? So the fact that he responded to you is great because again, you could compliment him on the response and ask for another one. Insistent, okay? Black Cat Dragon, I've been calling Don Bacon daily all week. He lords his bipartisan work, so time for him to show up. Yep, show up, otherwise you're gonna get caught. We're gonna know you're not bipartisan. We're gonna know you're not for the voters, you're for the donors. This one is crystal clear, that's why we picked this one to start with. You're either on the side of the voters or you're on the side of the big pharma, period. Mott said, I encourage Jimmy Panetta to sponsor it. Nani Dragon says, is there a script I need to read off when I call? Hey, Cara, who's our community director and watching, remind me where they can go and get there's an email that you can send, but I got to send you the right URL. I know there's a lot of URLs out there. Wang John wrote in, Corpo Dems should start panicking now because taking even 1 cent from AIPAC is going to be an immediate disqualifier in the next election. Tara Rose writes in, should we get the obvious congressman on the board too? Where's the squad these days? Oh, absolutely. Michael Napin, one of our viewers here, did a tweet about AOC. I didn't ask him to do that. He did it on his own and he attached one of AOC's videos talking about how important it is to get lower drug prices and better healthcare for Americans. And so I retweeted him. And so, guys, you know what? It's easier to follow my account. It's just my name. God, good luck spelling it, @Cenk Uygur, right? Forget all the other tweets, but when you see me retweeting one of you guys, make sure that you go and retweet it and share it and like it, etc. Not necessarily my tweet, the original member or viewer tweet, okay? And make sure, so when they see it, if AOC or Tim Burchett sees it and it's got like 15 likes, hey, by the way, if you were doing it on your own, it might be 2 or 3, but hey, 15 is a start. But if they see it's 150 likes or 1,500 likes, or wait a minute, 15,000 likes, it's gonna get their attention more, right? So way to work together, guys. Okay, so for the language on what you could say about the bill, tyt.com/drug prices. tyt.com/drug prices has basically the script. You could put it in any language that you want, but at least it gives you a starter there. And it's calling the rep on the phone. Sorry, that's what it shows you how to do. So it actually, in a sense, is exactly the question you were asking, and you could find that at tyt.com/drug prices. All right. Tara Rose writes in again, Cenk, high question. What's going to stop insurance companies from pocketing all the savings when we get cheaper drug prices? Us. So if we are powerful enough to stop big pharma, that means we have become a force to be reckoned with. And the national spotlight has now turned to, these politicians, we see you now under the bright lights. So we just made you stop backing big pharma for no reason, well, for your campaign donations. If you just turn around and try to give it to the health insurance companies because they're also donating to you, it ain't gonna work out for you. Aren't you? Look, I'm curious. Are you guys curious? How's this going to work out? Does it have a prayer? Imagine we get up to 10 co-sponsors, 20, and okay, here's a fun betting game, okay? You don't have to actually bet money, but you can do whatever you like, okay? I'm not your uncle, I'm not your dad. You do, everything is optional. But at what point, how many co-sponsors will it take for mainstream media to cover it? Because like this is a kind of an amazing development where people online all ask their representatives on both sides to support the same bill, and it begins to work. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a small name in American politics, and we just did it. She's on board, right? If we get to 10, that would be kind of spectacular to double the number of co-sponsors and to do it from the outside, the actual voters demanding it. You would think that that would be a huge story. They're not gonna cover it. No way. Don't bet. The over-under is not 10, okay? So will they cover it at 20 co-sponsors? Nah, I'd be super surprised. I'll put the over-under on when mainstream media begins to notice at 80 co-sponsors. I mean, that would be preposterous to go from 5 to 80 in a bipartisan way from outside Congress. That would be one of the most spectacular news stories of all time. I don't know about of all time, but a giant one, right? They won't cover it until they're absolutely, positively forced to, embarrassed to. There's no way, because they love corruption. Mainstream media is the getaway driver in this great American robbery where the politicians rob us on behalf of their donors. So when they start covering it, and then they'll try to smear us. Oh, bunch of voters, boo. You guys don't even have money. You don't have a lot of money, boo. You can't even buy ads on our net. Oh, yeah, by the way, why do they cover up for the corruption? Because all the money in politics goes to the mainstream media, or used to, and certainly the great majority does. All right, look at all these wonderful beauty. Now on Twitch, Itchy Brother Dragon. By the way, I reached out to my Congressperson Ilhan Omar, and I'm gonna go visit her office in person. Perfect. Okay, there's no reason why Ilhan Omar shouldn't join in. All right. Last one here, and then I'm going to give you guys one last thing, last two here, and then give you one thing for if you're going to No Kings protest, okay? So on YouTube member Boxy Brown 6900 wrote in, do other countries have lobbying groups inside the US? Why is AIPAC so powerful? Yeah, other countries do. They influence politicians in a lot of different ways. There used to be this guy named Stephen Solars who was a US representative, and he was friend of India. That meant he went to a bunch of Indian Americans and said, give me your money and I'll be the one guy who says, yeah, hey, maybe we should care about India too, right? And he was also a friend of Turkey. And so we'd go to Turkish American events and they'd give him money, and Stephen Solars would go, hey, you know what? Maybe the genocide, Armenian genocide wasn't so bad. Wait a minute, that's my group. That's anti-Turkish trope. No, everybody's doing it, right? Just, is there folks here who have substantially more money that are pro-Israel? Yes, there are. That's just reality. All right, last one. Jen Stenson says, can't thank you all enough. Please keep it up. When we come together, we all win. Hashtag United We Stand. You got that right, Jen. All right, so for those of you going to No Kings, I'm asking you to do two things. Well, three in a sense. One's easy, peaceful, non-violent. If you see anyone being violent, like get a circle around them, clear out, get them out. Get them out. Go, turn them in. Don't let them ruin this movement with any violence at all, okay? So that's a no-brainer, that's easy. Number two, bring American flags. We love America. We love our fellow Americans. We love the Constitution. We love the idea of America. We're trying to make it better. Is there anything more American than a protest against the government? No, it's like almost the most American thing you can do. More than baseball or apple pie. Okay. Mom and protesting equal, okay? I'll let you know what, Mom, you win, okay? But then protesting, it's as American as it gets. So now the third request, everything's always optional. When you get a chance, maybe when a speaker mentions Gaza or something along those lines, let me hear it loud and proud. Free, free Palestine. Let them hear you in Washington. Let them hear you in Tel Aviv. Let them hear you in Gaza. Man, they need to hear you in Gaza. Imagine millions of Americans across the country different places at different times. Chants of free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine. Look, 92% of Democratic voters are against Israel's actions in Gaza. No King's protest obviously going to be the Democratic side, right? Hey, if you're a Republican, you want to join, God bless your heart, right? But if you're among that 92%, let them hear you in Jerusalem. But again, most importantly, let them hear you in Washington, D.C., where they're supposed to represent us and not anyone else. Free, free Palestine. I love you guys. Let's keep going. So on Monday, we're going to have somebody from the Libertarian Institute join the battle with us. And we'll see if we can get any more congressmen before we come upon next week. So now we're done with this segment for today. Members, stay right here because I'm going to do a bonus episode for you guys, personal story as we do at the end of each of these because the members sustain us. We can't do any of this without the Young Turks members. We appreciate you guys. If you want to see that bonus episode, hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. Optional. All right, see you there. And I'm here. Okay, look at that. Okay, you guys got to get used to it. We're doing this thing without the transition and without the slate. So all you members, if you're already on the